Chapman, also co-chair for the next.
No,
I don't
No,
think so.
You're stepping down. Okay, this hasn't been announced publicly to anybody.
this
but-
this was where I was gonna announce
Okay,
it.
well, it's always good to let the chair, know. But here we are with the new co-chair, Christine Dubik. And welcome, and this is wonderful, and Wendy, we're sorry to see you go. You've been unbelievable, it's a lot of fun, you're
Right
first
back.
going nowhere, there's a really.
I'm still here, gonna be making trouble.
Excellent, excellent. So, and I just want to make sure everyone knows our new land use consultant, Martine Johannesson, who has been a fantastic addition this last month. And we have her to thank for a great deal of what we're going to discuss today. So I kind of feel like you all should just get started. You know, it's introductory, and again, I think everyone's on their way up, so I don't think it's that bother with everybody, but if you want to wait another 2 minutes, but I generally, as a rule, like to try to start on time, and we're now anything but. But anyway, one of you introduce yourselves and the project and what you're discussing. This is item 1 on the agenda for everybody, the environmental health impacts report on the Manhattan Detention Complex. And for those of you who back of the borough-based steel materials, and here they are. Okay, welcome.
Yay.
Thank you. Hi. We had a working group meeting this morning with the state senator. This happens quarterly. And it was excellent. And the team that you're seeing tonight presented this morning and were very helpful and will continue to be so. Sure and welcome, and thank you for coming to face in one day. And I think that's, we can start now. I don't even start, so terrific. These are the altitude speaking here, so wherever you'd like to sit here, if you're more comfortable, wherever, just as long as you're directing yourself to those for the remote world, that'll be great.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And thank you for having us here today. I'm Elaine Khan. I'm a program manager with the NYU Center for the Study of Asian American Health, CISA for short, at NYU School of Medicine. CISA is one of the many research centers in the country dedicated to research, education, and evaluation on Asian American health and health disparities. With a strong focus on community engaged research to generate research that is responsive and actionable. In 2019, community organizations in Chinatown and UBC approached us with concerns that Chinatown residents, especially older adults, would bear the brunt of the impacts for many years of large-scale construction activity. So we convened an interdisciplinary roundtable of researchers, environmental health experts, clinicians, and community leaders to review the evidence that did exist and identify potential risks and mitigation strategies. Discussions ultimately led to the development of our earlier reports on the health impacts of construction on older adults in Chinatown, which I'm happy to share if you don't have it. But in short, we saw that exposure to construction-related air pollutants can increase respiratory risks, such as asthma and bronchitis and lung cancer. We also see cardiovascular effects, such as heart attacks, strokes, and hypertension, neurological effects, such as dementia and cognitive decline, and lower birth rates. Noise pollution is linked to sleep disturbance, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, cognitive impairment in children, and mental health impacts such as chronic stress and annoyance. In fact, since we have compiled this report in 2019, there is newer evidence showing that harm is caused at lower levels than previously thought. There's now stronger evidence on neurological impacts such as cognitive decline and dementia, and prenatal effects such as low birth weight. There's also stronger evidence that there's metabolic effects as well, such as diabetes. And much clearer evidence that there is no safe threshold for air pollution. Significantly, concentration and regulatory standards deemed acceptable for the general population may not adequately protect vulnerable groups such as older adults, young children, pregnant people, and people with respiratory and cardiovascular conditions. One of the recommendations that emerged from that process was the importance of independent, community-based environmental monitoring, specifically monitoring air quality and noise around the construction sites over time. Over the following years, together with our collaborators from NYU School of Engineering and colleagues from the Division of Environmental Medicine, we helped support the installation of air quality monitors around the neighborhood. Here with us today are Tree Min and Antonio Zapparito on Zoom. They're both doctoral candidates from the Division of Environmental Medicine at NYU Grossman School of Medicine and the authors of today's report, which represents a summary of what those monitors have captured over the last few years, as well as our efforts to compare those findings with official monitoring sources and publicly available data. This is over to Tree and Antonio.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Edith, for the introduction. Again, my name is Tree Min, and partner, my co-author, Antonio Zapparito. He can't be with us today because he's in Spain writing his dissertation, but he's online right now, so he's going to jump in and talk about his part. But basically, with this report, I think the main goal out of it is just to provide like a big picture overview of the environmental impact of the construction of the demolition site on the air in the local surrounding areas. And to be able to do that, so we have really two big main objectives. This is like we started with what's already available, publicly available to everybody and can access, and that's the closing records website, where a lot of the environmental monitoring reports are posted on there, and all the construction milestones, all the updates from the department, the DDC uploaded online. So we started with that, and we kind of did a deep dive into what's out there and see, just kind of like extract the information out of it as possible. And the second part of it is we also have access to our own monitors. So we were able to install these in around the streets around the demolition site itself, and then that's just to complement the data that's been being put out by the DDC, and also kind of like provide a more community focused look insight into the air quality that's been affecting them. And so there's a lot of go through, so we just want to jump right in. And so you're just going to start talking about what we found when we dug into the reports that we posted online.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, hi. Thank you, Tree. Thank you, Yiling, for the introduction. My name is Antonio Zapparito. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with y'all in person, but I'm happy to be here online and help present the report that Tree and the team and I generated regarding the borough-based jail project in Manhattan. And so I'm going to go through briefly what we did step by step and go by tackling the first bullet point highlighted in bold in purple. So we compiled and graded the reports on air quality produced by AECOM, Hill joint venture, and contractors from August 2022 to May 2025. And so these are the monthly reports that were available on the borough-based jails website. And so we went through every single report, every single month, going through the different violations, going through the air quality data that are produced by every single monitor every month, going and documenting the changes of said monitors throughout the months, the additions, the subtractions, the movements. And we wanted to compile these data so it's accessible to the community, so we all have a better understanding of how air pollution was measured, the quality of the air pollution data that were coming out, that were available to us, the community, the public, so that we could also make informed decisions about our health. And so we'll go through talking about this first one. And Tree, if you don't mind, would you advance to the next slide? All right. So hopefully you can all see this pretty clearly. This is a screenshot of actually some of the data that was published in the report from NYC, DDC, and AECOM Hill joint venture. And so this is a graph of the data that was given from one of the monitors in August 23. And so as you can see right here, or maybe can't see, the blue line, which is supposed to represent the concentration of particles, the concentration of air quality that is being measured by this monitor. As you can note, the lack of connectivity in the blue line. Now, these monitors are supposed to be monitoring continuously, monitoring the air quality throughout the site, even on weekends, even despite not work times, in spite of work times. And as you can see, Tree, if you don't mind, can you click this slide? One thing, I think there should be a box to highlight to draw attention to it.
Oops.
Oh, there we go. There's a concerning lack of, thank you. There's a concerning lack of data here. And so this is what we were consistently given in these reports. What we're supposed to be assurances of that there was continuous monitoring and continuous concentration monitoring, and that there was concentrations that were below the thresholds, below the alert threshold, below the review threshold. We were given data that was incomplete, that was spotty, that was hidden from us. And so what we did was we went and graded every single one of these monitoring reports every single month based on the completeness of what we saw, because we wanted to understand what this data looked like in total. And so this is a snippet from the grading. So we took a ruler and measured, the connectivity of each of the lines and how much of the line was missing, the percent, and we graded it every month, every monitor for 3 years that this project has been going on. And as you can see that, say for these different monitors, there's a concerning amount of data that is missing that we were given every single month and that we're not given every single month. So Tree, if you don't mind, we can go on and move to the next slide as well, because that is one thing that we did in grading all the reports on the monitors. But we also wanted to understand the timeline of the demolition and make correlations between the monitoring the events that were going on, the concentrations that were given to us, and how the dismantlements, the drillings were proceeding. And so as the community was updated every month, we made an interactive timeline and compilation of these data reports from AECOM, JV Hill, and the DDC. And so we made this online. We put it in the packet as well to give us an understanding of all the projects that were going on concurrently and one after the next to see the progression of the project. And this is for us, this is for the community to better understand how this project was developing despite maybe some delays, maybe some project completions faster than expected, but for us to know and better understand the project. All right, thank you. And so third, we went through and measured and noted the air pollution exceedances that were recorded. And so if you can go to the next slide, I think one really important takeaway is that these monthly reports often stated that no exceedances were noted. Now, if there's one takeaway that I want us, the community, to take away from tonight as well, from this part of the presentation, it's that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. That in spite of these reports giving us these data, they were incomplete for a lot of the months, and incomplete at different sections. And so while these reports state that no exceedances were noted, how can this be true if there is a lot of data missing, if we were not able to capture the true concentrations that were emitted from the demolition site? And so importantly, that's one takeaway, as well as the concentrations that they were being used to measure the safety of the community, measure the safety of human health, measure the safety of the workers. The 150 microgram per cubic meter standard, as you can see right there, is much higher than what the WHO and the California Air Resources Board state in order to protect human health. And so while no exceedances were noted, the threshold was high and there was a lot of data missing. Lastly, we wanted to comment as well on the independent monitoring that the Independent Community Monitor did, with their supplemental monitoring going on site, measuring compliance, their reports that they printed out towards the end of this project, because these independent community monitors went on to rigorously test what was going on the site and inform us of what should be done in the future. And we want to note that the PM 2.5 monitoring, better protection of people's health, and the on-site monitoring plans that they painstakingly went through and drew up, none of these recommendations were added to the contractor's plan. And so that's important to note as well. Lastly, something that we are still waiting upon are the multiple FOIL requests that we initiated. And if you can proceed to the next slide as well. Thank you. So we submitted 3 different FOIL requests. One, to request the raw air pollution data so that we could understand the concentrations, because the graph that we did show you earlier on, the scales were very difficult to understand what the concentrations were. There's a lot of data omitted, there's a lot of data missing, and so we wanted those raw numbers in order to better understand and give the community access to this information and distill it. Unfortunately, that request was denied, as the DDC said they did not have the raw numbers. And so we were informed no right to appeal. And then we submitted a 3rd request on March of 2026, waiting for the contracts between the DDC and its contracting partners and its environmental monitors so that we could find where this data was supposed to be stored, who is supposed to have access to it, and are we still allowed to have access to it? And so we are still waiting that response. Okay. So thank you for listening to this part of the presentation. Tree is going to go ahead and take it away to talk about what we did in terms of air quality monitoring for this project going forward. So I'll stay on over here.
At this juncture, I want to thank you. I also just want to remind the team that you have a half hour to present, which, we're hoping you will be able to manage to get a lot of people. So I just want to remind you, and I thought some of your key findings and your mitigation strategies were very interesting. I hope we'll get to those. So I just want to make sure we're reminding you it's part of my job. Thank you.
We'll try to get.
Thank you.
I'll go through these quickly. So, because we weren't able to find a lot of data from the reports online. We wanted to, because we have access to these monitors, we wanted to install these monitors around the site to get, as data nerds, we wanted to just be able to dig into the data and see what is going on around the demolition site. And so
Are these your own?
these are our own monitors, yeah. So they're called Purple Air monitors. They are low cost monitors that they're like $200 versus the the very advanced high tech monitors that the GDC actually uses. But they are validated by the EPA and they are widely used by the EPA. It's like an additional tool to monitor the air around you.
Did you purchase them or?
We're going to save questions, sorry, for the end. Yeah, thanks.
So we installed 5 of them around the demolition site. So shown here on the map with the four triangles. And then that allows us just to get real-time PM data. PM is particulate matter. That's what's being one of the many things that being generated from construction. And then anybody has access to this data. Once it's online, you can go to their website and just download the data and do the analysis yourself. And And so we have that, and then we also compare it to the levels around your city. You know, we use this as like a baseline to see how much lower, how much higher the levels around the demolition site is compared to this baseline. And this is what we found. So these three graphs shows you the monthly averages. PM10. PM10 is for lack of better words, I'm just going to refer to it as dust. And so these are monthly dust levels from January and December for three consecutive years from 2023 through 2025. So as you can see, the blue or the bar on the left, on my left, are the levels, percent the levels around the construction site, demolition site, and on the right, green, are the levels in your city. So from what, from at first glance, from what we've noticed is that the levels near the demolition site is consistently either a little bit higher or a lot higher than what's being measured in other parts of New York City. So that is one of the red flags that we want to point out. And another thing we want to point out is that the purple air, even though it's great for things like PM10 or dust, the levels that we do see might be underestimated. So what we see here might be lower than what it's actually being being released in the air. And like Antonio said, the DDC uses the 150 micrometers per meters cubed standard as a way to gauge the health protectiveness of the construction site. But if you were to go by a different standard, that's purely health protective, and that's the one that's set by the World Health Organization, that's set at 45 micrograms per meters cubed. Then in 2023, 23 days surpassed the standard, and that's not including the wildfires. And 8 days in 2024 and 18 days in 2025. So then this localized high levels around the construction site, demolition site, kind of signals that there is a local source of pollution that's right nearby. And one other thing is that, as you can see here, around the end of each year, like around November, the winter months, you see the levels around the demolition site being like a spike. It far exceeds what we see in the rest of New York City, and we want to know why that's happening. So one of our hypotheses is perhaps it's a construction site. So we look at the construction updates, the timeline, and see cross-reference that, and see what's going on. And what we saw was that during these winter months, that's when the demolition has. These are like hundreds of feet tall buildings, and this is at the tail end of it. So, by that time, it has reached the ground level or the level of where the sensors are. So that kind of indicates that once the demolition kind of reached the area where the purple air, the monitors can actually accurately measure the pollution, then you see a peak in the levels, in the dust levels. Hope that makes sense. But all of that, with that said, these trends that we see here, like they might suggest that there is something happening, but we can't 100% say that this is coming from the demolition site. For now, it's not possible just yet. There are many things that's going on in Chinatown. There's National Grid there. There's a lack of ambient green spaces, and restaurants. A lot of things that's going on, but the construction could be one of those things that's contributing to the high levels of pollution. But again, given the fact that the community that's living around there, elders, children, They're vulnerable communities. We would just want to, ask if, if introducing additional sources of pollution around the area is 100% necessary or not. Yeah. Right. So you wanna?
Yep. Yep. Sorry. Is the last bullet point on? So yeah. Oh, there we go. Well, I'll say that bullet point then. So looking at our independent monitoring and what we did using the PM monitors, the purple layers, showing that there's consistently higher monthly PM10, that the dust levels around the demolition site than the rest of New York City. So many days surpassing the health protected WHO standard at 35 micrograms per cubic meter. And so this is important because it's showing that there's higher exposure levels that people might be 45 microliters per cubic meter, that there's more exposure that people might be breathing in to PM, and that could cause adverse health effects such as those that Yiling mentioned in the beginning of our presentation. Okay. And then looking at the previously published data from AECOM, JV Hill that were published monthly were inadequate in describing PM exposures and violations, that there needs to be more oversight with these data, that we get more consistent data, these concentrations that the community, us, that other people who are interested in these data are getting, and that we need to be able to accurately characterize and compare these results to relevant standards. And so our findings in this report is to better inform the community, better inform people as to going forward with other demolition projects, but also to ask for more. So thank you for your time, and be happy to answer any questions.
I do not remove the question. Okay, all of you, anybody in this room can receive this report, and it's for also the YouTube of the public meeting that was done in March for a much more comprehensive review. But thank you, that was a great helpful summary. So questions to roll down the road. Yes, Wendy.
So thank you so much. That was really interesting. So it looked like, those gaps, was it that they just turned the machines off on the weekends? I mean, because it looked like it was like 5 days and then a little gap and then 5 days and a little gap, like, or was it not? Or was it just random or like,
Well,
did you get a sense of the missing data, like why the missing data? Or was it just turned off on, when you correlated it to the, big things coming down and lots of dust, they just happened to turn it off? Or, give us a little more sense of the missing data versus the timeline or the construction or the just days of the week.
well, and so might be able to better answer this, but from what so whenever there's like a gap in data in the reports, ETC does mention why. Sometimes it's due to maintenance. Sometimes it's due to like being, the monitors being moved around. That's among one of the many reasons that they, cited as to why they're gapping in data. But, and so anyone.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like Tree said, that there were some times where they said, oh, there's some monitor shifting, moving around. But actually the main reason, particularly in the beginning of the monitoring, was that the battery often died, and that these were supposed to be solar charged batteries, and they were not maintained. And these monitors are supposed to be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of whether construction's going on or not. And so that was a large problem for us. Yes, these gaps did happen on the weekend sometimes, but not often enough where it's like, oh, it's happening only on the weekends. It's happening just during the days, random times. It's going off, and so they were not well maintained, particularly in the beginning. Now they did get better towards the end of 2025, towards the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, and so they were meeting compliance, but particularly in the beginning when a lot of the demolition was going on, they were not well maintained.
Thank you. Other questions? Andrew?
Could you, hi, thank you again for this. Could you discuss science and health impact between the different levels of acceptability, the 150 and the 45 WHO standard that was being used? What was the standard that was being used based on?
So the 150 standards, it's the legal, it's like the legal standards set by the EPA. So like, and a lot of things come into play when they said that level. It's one, the health that's in there, but another thing is the feasibility of the application. Like, will any construction site be able to be able to go below that level? And so, so like, yes, there is a health aspect to it, but a lot of it is more driven by the feasibility of it. Versus the WHO, that's non-binding. That's just a suggestion, and that is purely from a health protective goal.
So you're implying or stating that anything below 150 is just not a practical application in New York? Is that the implication?
It's not practical, but I feel like a lot of people would violate that standard. Too many people would violate that standard to be able to set it lower, 150 at the burn rate.
Thank you. Jeff?
Eric, one of our board members is attending.
Thanks. Hey, Jeff.
Yeah,
There.
following up on Richard's question, in the monitoring that you guys did, first of all, what time period was that?
Our monitors?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's on 24 hours, and we monitored from 2023 through 2025.
Oh, so you've been monitoring this for several years. Okay, that's interesting. And did you, in terms of exceedances, did you quantify how many days it exceeded the 150 level?
Yeah, so we did not see any days that surpassed the 150,
All right, thanks.
except for the during the wildfires. But I think
Steve, so I'm familiar with the Purple Air. It's a great device. I bought one a decade ago for my son's stool and pack slip. And I'm familiar with it. So I know that people just, anyone can buy one. I can buy one. And that the data is live. Were you able by chance to find any Purple Airs that were around that area before the construction started to kind of provide a control, I would say, because you're saying right now that you can't completely pinpoint it. It's likely, right? But have you looked at other Purple Air data from years before?
so the earliest one and nearest one is all the way down Moscow and Mott.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for, yeah.
The Moscow the street. I know it's no W at the end.
That's
So-
clear.
It's still a little bit further away.
And
And
so, yeah, it would be quite different.
I don't remember how but it is because I didn't actually, like, I remember actually comparing it with the ones that we saw,
Okay,
the, when that was such a complex, so that is a good thought, and maybe after listening.
you could have a control. Yeah, you could have control and then you can compare the data. And the second question I have is that, did I hear you correctly in saying there's no state threshold for air pollution in New York State? Did I hear that in the beginning? Yes.
I think this is not New York State specific, it's just that, in research, you know,
Yeah.
we're just finding more and more that there's no evidence that there is a safe transport.
that even at very low levels, far lower than what we're talking about today, but in different conditions, that there is most likely not being safe for evolution.
I see, but New York State allows 150 or,
Yeah, I think you also have to remember that a lot of these regulations were set, and a lot of standards were set decades ago.
Right,
All
yes.
all of the new research.
Yeah.
I mentioned that since 2019, there's been even more new research coming out, and the standards have not been updated. And this standards differ for different populations as well. A lot of this research were done in different conditions, certainly not in dense urban settings, the residents living right next to sure tons of pollution day in and day out. So it's just very different. Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence now coming out that it's just exposure to air pollution should be.
air pollution is the number one concern we have environmentally. Most people don't know that, but it's air
Yeah.
inside of it. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thanks. Oh, okay. Usually I'm gonna try to take one question around for each person, but go ahead, Richard. That's it for you. Two.
So given all of this, what specific recommendations do you have for us going forward? What can you suggest we need to do?
To Richard's point, which is beautifully done in the report, you go through the recommended mitigation strategies, which would you like to, I was gonna review those if you know, because they're very good, and I think that's kind of the purpose of today in part, is to look forward with our BBJ team, which is kind of a wonderful confluence, and thank you to you all for coming. Of where do we go? You know, now that we're potentially entering construction, you laid out what you'd like to see. Do you would you wanna review that, or should, we have Martine go through those if you'd like, or right in from your report? That in answer to your questions. Yeah.
Sorry, I use it as a little guide, but I think one of the big things that we want to ask for is just, more access to the data that's being collected. Right now, it's been a little bit hard to get more granular data from our requests, our FOIL requests that we've shown we've been denied multiple times. Because it's just, just like more transparency in the data communication. And another thing we wanted to, would like to see is, we talk a lot about PM10 because that's related to pollution, but, there's this PM2.5, this like these smaller particles that travel further down into the lung that have a, a much more, or maybe not much more, but like a more significant health impact than PM10 does. And, it was said in the reports that they were going to provide that kind of data, but that was nowhere found. And again, just monitoring data throughout all phases of construction. I think the last time, I think not until a few months in that we actually started receiving like environmental monitoring reports. So now with with the construction going on, perhaps from the get-go, that's something that we implemented in the plan.
And it's been brought to our attention that there's been like an increase in outbound variances that has been pretty expensive for what's funding and following the morning all the way up to midnight. We highly recommend that construction hours be reduced or limited, and that if there are any requests for variances that they be reviewed and not just be granted approval automatically. As you have heard, because the threshold for the safe noise and air exposures is, we don't know where that is, and there's a lot of evidence showing that sleep disruption is just not good for you. And you can imagine years and years of residents being subjected to
lack of sleep, that's, I don't think you need to be a scientist to, for me and tell you that that's not healthy. And we also wanted to recommend an independent monitor with real enforcement capacity. We're involved the ICM right from the design stage, so that the ICM can also with with the construction company, the city determine where their monitors should be placed, what kind of monitors should be in place, reporting formats, all of that, and be able to bring that or give that data to the community. And also, setting up some kind of bidirectional communication. We find that communication with the community is, I would say it's quite poor. We're talking from a perspective of researchers where we've had to really, I think, fight to get real raw data. We still have not been able to get them despite some efforts. So we don't know what the community has to go through to get information. So those would be some of their recommendations that we.
Excellent, thanks for reviewing that, Sarah.
Actually, all of this is about to come up around the marina and gateway. All of these questions are about to come up.
Absolutely, it's a very,
And
yeah.
there doesn't seem to be any real monitoring going on. I know, let's say there is, but physically going around and looking, even sneaking in,
Well,
I'm just so,
so Sarah's talking about the Battery Park City Authority plans, and I know we have Jeff, the chair of that committee, who is going to be very much on that.
yeah, but it's environmental and there's so many people complaining. I don't know if you get them, but so many people complaining about the air quality and how they feel. I know it's affected me, but I have rhinitis.
I appreciate you bringing it up. It's a very critical issue. It's not just there or here, but everywhere in the city, certainly in a community board like ours that has an extraordinary development going on in every other site.
Oh my God. the
And
construction,
so
oh my God.
it is incredibly helpful to hear this, and I want to thank all the folks involved that we do for having helped produce this, because it does really talk about a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, so Jan Lee, who was the head of Neighbors United for Low Canal Street, a very important voice of Chinatown and Lower Manhattan generally, thank you, and
To this committee, we want to say thank you for bringing this to your agenda. I know you didn't have to, everyone has other issues, but this one is very particular to our community. The reason why it is so important, and we are so grateful to NYU Langone and the Study for Asian American Health, because, and if you watch the video recording of the town hall that we just did, you would see Dr. Elaine Shum, who's a cardiothoracic surgeon. The first part of our presentation is the fact that there is a systemic problem that is happening across North America, which is that Asian American women who are non-smokers are developing lung cancer at an amazing rate, and they don't know the trigger. So partnering with NYU and NUBC, Hamilton Madison House, our partner organizations down here, has pointed us in this direction to say, is this prolonged, protracted, years-long exposure to the largest Asian community on the East Coast of the United States, what is the effect? We lived through 9/11. We remember Christine Todd Whitman, who all told us the air is safe. We've learned a lot of lessons from that. Thank God we have purple air monitors, but really thank God we have PhD doctoral students who are here to study what none of us could study at a granular level. And what they're bringing to us is extremely alarming. Gaps in data mean that none of us really know what's going on. Let's just translate that to what this report is. We do not know what's going on. And the culpable actors here are the city of New York. You bring up another site downtown. What is going on in your site downtown? Based on what's happening here at the Borough Base Jail, how do you know your data is gonna be available to you? Well, the people are in the room now that can answer that. This report has really drawn a line in the sand. We are looking at a very vulnerable community that has special health needs, as was talked about at NYU. So I leave it there, but thank you to this committee, thank you to Community Board One for constantly bringing this to the larger group.
Thanks, Jan. Vera.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to what Jan's saying, I am seriously concerned that we should even be moving forward right now on this project without knowing that our health and our lives are being adequately protected. Absolutely, you have seen, there is missing data. What is the excuse for missing data, monitoring health data? Why is that happening? Whatever they're saying, exceedances, no exceedances, we don't know. There's gaps in missing data. There could have been exceedances during that time. So I don't understand why this project is moving forward until the community is secure and safe and has an independent monitor and has evaluated your monitoring, all your monitoring plans, which I have not seen yet. I think we boiled for them. You have not produced them. I don't think we should be moving forward on this project until we know that we are being properly monitored, that there will be no gaps in the data, that the correct PM 2.5 is being monitored, and that our independent monitor will, her recommendation or his recommendations will be followed. Otherwise, this is just, it's just murdering a community at this point. And we don't know what the long-term effects will be.
Thanks, Sarah.
My name is Maureen, I'm a resident. In Chinatown. And thank you very much for all the work that you've done. It's just wonderful to know that you care and you're contributing to all of this. My question to you is, when you've been told that you don't have access to the data, that you're asking for the missing access, were you given a reason why you wouldn't give you information? Was it because you didn't have the full out or the right titles for them to respond to?
We were told that when the Gramercy demolition team stopped, the access to the cloud that holds that information was no longer accessible to anyone on the planet. Now, that just doesn't even sound legal, but Jeff's here, he could tell you. We were told that the reason why the data will never come to us is that Gramercy's cloud was shut down when Gramercy finished demolition. Now, that's a warning to all of us who live downtown, who have many of the projects that we're gonna have coming up. At any moment, they can turn off the switch and the data is gone forever. So I'd like some clarity on that, but thank you for bringing it up, and I apologize, you had other
It's
reasons.
huge. And,
They shut it off.
It'd be contractually.
before they even shut it off, one of the other reasons as to why we did not have access to the ground, everything that they said, everything that we need is in the reports. All your reports, so like those gaps, those data with the gaps, that's
Fine.
fine, that's fine.
Fine.
Like you can use that, and we're not gonna provide you with more data.
Okay, be very concerned about how you put that. No.
I just
You
want-
raise a hand and you get called. That's Tammy set that up last this year. Tammy.
Okay, so I wanna just clarify, just so everybody's like really crystal clear, a couple things. If the data's not in the report, it doesn't exist anymore. That you know of.
That's what we were told.
I mean, you can only go by what you're told. If it appears somewhere else at some other time, would you be able to update such report? Yes, looking back at my colleagues with the city. Okay, that's good to know. And this is more of an odd monitoring question because we have, I mean, the jail site in itself is inland, but we still have incredible whipping winds that come down. And due to the nature of streets and being where we are, does that help or hurt when it comes to monitoring? Like if it's a very windy area, does that set the monitors off in terms of not being accurate because they can't sample as cleanly. Like, I don't understand, and I want to understand specifically when we're looking at this, because not including the dust clouds that came from the storms and things like that, but on the regular monitoring, how does a wind affect the quality of the sample?
Right, wind direction and wind speed has a huge effect on, you know, what is being picked up by the monitor. If the monitor is downwind from the direction side, if it's upwind, it's gonna be different, even though they're 5 feet apart. You might get very completely different readings. If the wind blows too much dust into the monitors, the readings might not be accurate. So it's to be able to like fully understand how wind affects the PM levels requires, from what I know, requires like some high level data modeling that we currently do.
And so I guess my last follow-up on that, to understand that, is you would actually have to compare the data from the upwind and the downwind in an approximate relative location to get some kind of a. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, one sentence and then I'll go back. I wanted to add, if you were a human being standing in the upwind or downwind, you're still inhaling the particles. So whether it changes the data or not, if you are standing on the street, it is still going into your lungs, period. Okay, we have one online, okay, it's just a
Can you make sure that you check all the attendee lists to be sure we don't have any other board members?
Christine is doing that, we did do that once, but I think everybody from, yeah, so John, is it John Alford?
John Alford.
Hey, John. John Alford, I have a DCT.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. Isn't this an interesting meeting? And thank you very much to the people who got us, the NYU scientists, and we appreciate your intelligence and your bravery. And with this evidence, however we want to categorize it, but basically of falsifying, losing, and omitting data, how are we going to be able to trust any of the monitoring that's in place right now unless we have immediately an independent monitor, not under the control of the city and its voice boxes, with shutdown authority? Because even now, when they're breaking the rules, by the time they deal with them, the damage has already been done. So I think we need an independent monitor, like Vera said, to be able to protect ourselves. But in addition, you know, these guys they're about money. And with the billions that are going into their pockets, why can't we have created an insurance fund for the people and for the buildings that are certain to be damaged? And to put that money aside to make sure that when they've left and left the damage behind, that there'll be some compensation for the people that get hurt.
Okay. Thank you, John, good point.
Thank you.
I think you could segue, we've heard a lot about the instrument monitor, I think, you know, clearly there's nowhere in New York that doesn't have problems like this. This really a very high level problem. And it's something that is for understanding ubiquitous with any construction project, particularly one with as many potential impacts as this one and as well as real as it's done. So I think our only hope, Bill, as much as I give the call for, you know, stopping this, is to understand, you know, what are the systems that are in place and what are the recommendations that can be met. And I really am thankful to the borough-based jail team. Remember, they're not like, you know, all evil over there, so let us treat them respectfully as they go forward. But, you know, let's work together to see what we can do to make this work, if there is such a way. And I appreciate you coming, and you're going to deliver some amount of information as to what that may look like. And we can then ask questions and, you know, keep moving forward as best we can with what we've got in front of us. Not to, you know, not to minimize this at all, but just to say, let's work together as best we can. So those of you who were at the meeting this morning, the quarterly meeting, we did hear from this team, and thank you for that. And I think some of this we do it now, so if that's okay for anybody who's hearing it twice. So I'm not sure exactly who all, I think you've got, well, why don't you just start and then introduce yourself? This is the team that's got people from Perini and A. Tom and EBC here. So go ahead and introduce yourselves as we start.
We can sit. We're like closer.
I can't hear you, so.
Come on over here.
Whoever you need to come. Sure. Talk is into the, owl. Right? Yeah. To the owl.
Hi, figuring slides. Oh. Virtual big. Very nice.
So I'll start out. I'm George Argerius with Duke Radio and G. In Venture, we are the design builder project. Here representing BBC, which may be a quick chart here of the breakdown. So we have ourselves, Duke Radio and G. Under us is HK and various consultants that handle design. Of course, we're working for BBC and all the sponsors to bring this project to the end. I'll just give you a little bit of background to one of your questions were very important to us. So I really want to hit those. There's a lot of slides here, so I'll kind of try to get through as much as quickly as possible. So this is our preliminary project schedule. We got notice to proceed last year, 2025 in May. Since then, we really just did site exploratory work, which I'll get to in a minute. But right now, focusing on 2026, we're installing CCAM piles, which is part of our supportive excavation system, and we're excavating. As we get later into the year, we'll start caissons, and then we'll continue that effort all the way through early 28, where we'll start foundations and start to go vertical. So big picture, building is not going to start going vertical, steel erection until the end of 2028. Steel erection and concrete should finish a year later, more or less, in 2029. And then the remainder of the 3 years is doing interior work, and all the electrical and mechanical systems is report with a completion date in 2032. So the project site, so you're familiar, but what it looks like, this is as of last week. We have 2 large drill rigs on site. These drill rigs are installing CCAM piles. I'll get to the actual theory behind that system in just a moment. We have also a couple of excavators and some support equipment like generators and things. So this work right now. These are the bits of equipment. As you can see, they have a large presence, and we appreciate not just the dust and the noise, but also the visual. We also consider that a factor. So we want to get this equipment in and out as fast as possible. Even the next slide. Mine too. A little bit of the lag.
Sorry, I just found some routine as attending, so I'm just moving.
So let's talk about deliveries. We talked about the early hours, and we do appreciate sleep, and it's very important. But we are trained for certain size of deliveries by the Department of Transportation. So a number of these are these large equipments that you just saw that really do not go through bridges past a certain time. So that's what is causing some of these early deliveries that you have seen to date. These are really for the cranes, excavators, these large pieces of equipment that are required on site. So that's the constraint there for the early deliveries that are anywhere from 4:30 to 7 a.m. What you'll see this year are the casings, which are on those tubes. Those are part of the CCAM piles. We have reinforcement bar and of course concrete. This is the current condition of the site. You see the red, solid red lines along Baxter and Center Street. That is our fence. It's taking one, street lane there, traffic. We have the courthouse Sally Port to the south in that gold color. There's a lot of movement there with their, persons in custody coming in and out, so we coordinate with them almost daily. Make sure there's no major conflicts there with the buses, which is why the entrance is a little bit further north. And what we are going to now change on our site, as you can see in Baxter, we want to accommodate Chunk Pack's request to move our gate further down Baxter. So we've pushed it further down. I'm not sure the exact distance. It should be around 70 or 80 feet. We'll confirm that. But once Con Edison is complete.
Down which way?
I'm sorry.
When you're
South-
saying down, are we talking?
Sorry, south is to the right of the screen.
Okay.
So you'll see there, Chunk Pack to the left.
Yep.
It's hard to see it. There's a pointer, but there's a little person there with a flag.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So that,
You better go and watch. You better look at my effect. Yeah.
this is really the. So this area is where we're gonna adjust a little bit, bring the gate down, so to have less impact on the senior folks coming in and out of that side entrance on Baxter or Chunk Pack. The timing of that, we'd like to get that in right now, but we're waiting for Con Edison to complete some of their repair work. We have an electrical vault that extends into the ground about probably 15 feet. So they're gonna come repair that. Hopefully, they haven't given us a date yet, but should be within the next couple of months. Once that is completed, we will shift that gate to the south, and that will alleviate some of the pressure there for the traffic passing in front. Let's go to the next slide. So work completed. We're now, last year, the majority of the work was doing some site validation. We were looking at some borings, for some geotechnical verification, some environmental test bits to understand where the water level is, and some other details for engineering. Some existing utility work. Con Edison has been active for the past year. They should be wrapping up within the next 6 to 8 weeks or better with our work around their site and within our site. We've done some utility work on Baxter and Center Street, surveying, and of course installation of monitoring equipment, which we'll get to in greater detail. 2026, how we started construction this year. This was in April. We started looking at these specific areas, started removing some of the old remnant foundation elements. These are the areas that we want to focus on of that work. Zooming in north, which is near Chunk Pack, you can see on the left of the screen is the Chunk Pack building and outline. In green are the foundation elements from Chunk Pack. Those stay where they are. We do not impact those elements. Further to the right of the screen in blue is an existing wall and footings from the old building. Those are also staying in place. But as you see further to the right or south, all these yellow elements are being removed to enable us to put caissons and foundation in place. Just want to give everybody some background. There.
I'm sorry, could you just go back to the one with the yellow MDF? Could you give a little more of a description of what that was? I didn't get that this morning.
Of course, so remnant, so the old building that was on top of the site that Gramercy removed, they removed everything except for the footings, the old foundation. So that is out in our scope of work. We're going in there and we are excavating.
Every one of those?
What's in yellow?
And how far down do those go approximately?
So those are at the old cellar level, we're saying anywhere from 15 to 20 feet maximum.
Sorry, I broke the rule. Interrupted.
No, it's okay. If we go back actually to the picture, you can see that work. You have better visual. So you can see here on the upper right-hand corner, that is where those footings are. We're in the process of removing some of those elements. The way we design the caissons is we're gonna try to miss some of those elements, but to get to the bottom of the basement, a good portion of those will have to be.
Where are those? Maybe I'm using from lectures.
So right now, you can see, right there. See that? That area. So that's what we're working on now. You know, already completed, where you see the drill rig on the right, those elements have already been extracted. And you can see, once those are extracted, the drill rig goes there, and starts to drill down into the web. So let's. So we talked about that. The main message here is that we're preserving the chunk pack foundation and immediate adjacent footings from the old building. We don't want to have any type of impact on those footings, so we're staying with it. As of May last month, we started drilling, as I just showed you on the aerial shot. Those operations are, you see the dark blue, those are the actual sequence. As we go further into the year, that operation will move south or toward the right of the screen. And that's when the purple rigs will start working. Those elements are casings, and those are actually part of the foundation. And a better picture to illustrate this. Correct. So theoretically, and just, I don't want to get into technical, but it's at the secant pile wall, which is in the perimeter. This serves as a barrier, isolate the water table or the water.
Slurry.
It's not slurry, it's a secant pile wall. So slurry wall, you typically do like a trench and you fill it with slurry. In this case, what we do is we put cylinders on the ground and we guide an auger, we remove the soil. We then fill, as the soil is being removed, we fill it with concrete and a large steel beam. So these secant piles, they interlock and they create a solid wall. That goes all the way to bedrock. It's embedded into the bedrock by a couple of 2-3 feet. And it creates a sturdy wall to protect the water. The caissons, sorry.
I had a question about how deep into the bedrock. Related to the ones that you've taken out, that is predates this, and how much deeper are these done?
The ones that were taken out are not into bedrock. There's one down anywhere from 30, 40, and 50. The bedrock varies, 80 to 100.
So you're going down 80 to 100.
Correct. And we're socketing into that. It varies by location. We get through the weathered rock, which is more of a decomposed rock, and we want the solid rock to get 2 or 3 feet. The secants and the actual caissons that are part of the foundation, those go in slightly deeper than the table.
And the water that was below the site?
The water, I'm gonna give you a nice.
Nothing finished now, yeah, that's okay.
Oh.
This would give you a nice idea, so. It's a very simplified image, but it explains what's going on there. So the secant wall is in gray. Those are going in now. Once that's completed, those, we're gonna start excavating down and installing the pink cross-lap bracing. Once we get with our excavation near the water table, which you see on the right, we will start pumping out water within those walls. And the reason why I want to do that is because the foundation of the new building is lower. We would be working underwater if we don't do that. So you have to lower the water table. It's monitored with various wells. I'll show you the locations of those. There's redundancy in the systems where we have extra wells. If there's a surge or a storm or for some reason we get extra water inside and pour out, we have extra wells safety factors built into the system. The water table on the outside will remain the same. Naturally, it will fluctuate whether there's a flood event, whether the tunnel to the west is charging water out, but that will naturally fluctuate. It will not change what was there before.
But is there any connection between, this is something that I find very.
I prefer that we access
Okay.
it.
So we'll come back to this. What slide?
This is,
6 out of 3. No, with
six out of.
No, that's not, that's June.
There's like, there's guys, I'm.
We can come back to the do.
Yeah, you'll remember. Okay.
All right, so some additional work that we're gonna be doing this year, outside of the site is relocating these fire hydrants to enable us to install some of the utilities and some of the, CCAM piles. The first one is on Baxter Street. You can see I'm gonna relocate it across, up this image, which is also east. The other one is on Center. We're gonna move north or to the left of the street. So that will be happening, this summer. Some additional works, to enable our construction is what you see on the left is the current condition, and on the right is the new traffic light on Center in white. Basically, I'm gonna get this. You can see we need to remove the light on the right because it's right within our site. And that will be replaced, we'll add another signal here. So this is right now in review with DOT, we're pretty much halfway through our review. And just coordinating to make sure that the signals are visually accessible to the eye. The next item is this light pole that's within our site along Center. We're gonna replace that with a new site pole temporarily on the western side of Center while we do the construction. That's another item that we get this year. Another item outside of the site that we need to actually perform is this egress at the courthouse. The permanent condition of the new facility has a sally port between the courthouse and the new facility, which is in conflict with its emergency egress. You can see here where it says old egress. So that will be replaced by the new one that's here along Baxter. To give you a better understanding, the image to the left shows the old and then the new. So what we'll do is we're going to take one of these windows. We're going to take about half of that opening and replace it with the door for emergency situations on it, which is right there. It has certainly gone through landmarks, BBC, and they are positive about this design. It's going to match the existing building. So that will be the new permanent egress. That will be starting within about a month or so. Here we're at the important parts. So community impacts, of course, site safety, we take very seriously, not just for construction workers, but anybody that steps on the site. To get oriented, they have about a half hour or to an hour session in the morning before they are allowed to get on site. We're also getting lessons learned from other areas, from other projects and applying them here. So you'll see those. In terms of monitoring the tunnel, our engineer of record has submitted to transit their recommended monitoring plan, which includes the tunnel. The MTA has reviewed and approved this plan, and DOB has also. For the tunnel, we have vibration monitoring, shape arrays, and optical monitors, which measure the movement or shape of the tunnel. So that is an ongoing monitoring process. Along with that, we have noise monitoring. Before we get to that, let me explain a little bit about vibration and movement. So there's two alerts. criteria. The first is called alert, which draws attention to an area. There's a lot of these alerts throughout the day because there's various movements, whether it's from ongoing heavy traffic from out the tunnel, or other factors like, thermal movement. Some of the buildings you might see, when the building warms up, the facade might shift by a little bit. So that's the alert criteria. It draws attention to that area. We investigate. We see whether it's actually construction related. The limit is a higher threshold that we put a little bit more attention to. We investigate, potentially pause the work, stop the work if it's needed, and remedy it with limitation. So that both vibration and movement, and of course, the noise. The noise, we're following 85 dBA during the day and 75 during the night, which is set by code. And the noise has criteria as well. The monitoring for dust, we talked about here, the gentleman walked us through the dust alerts. We are measuring 10 PM, which is really dust. We can get more into the theoretical and science about 2.5 and the emission that comes from various vehicles or kitchens in the area. So the PM10 is what we are following, which is the EPA standard. If we go to the limit, or same thing, pause, look at the area, see what the information is. Lastly, the groundwater monitoring, we have these criteria set by transit and by our engineer of record, where -2 from the baseline brings some attention, -5 is a more focused look and pause to the work. Before we start any of this monitoring, we set a baseline, and that goes for all these types of monitoring. For the groundwater, we should start at the end of the year to do set some baselines before we start the actual view water in 2027. And I'm not going to strictly then please save your questions and write them down. These are some examples of the equipment monitoring for vibration, crack gauges. The crack gauge is a very simplistic tool, but it's actually very informative. Anywhere where there's cracks, we set these epoxy into that area and check on them continuously to see if there's any movement in those cracks. A noise monitor, pretty straightforward. AMTSs or automated flow stations communicate with these optical prisms. These prisms are mounted on the building. I'm sure you've seen them around the neighborhood. These measure movement. Stuff. Dust monitor. This is an actual dust monitor that's static. It stays in place. And then we have handheld monitors. We really want to address the concerns that you mentioned about continuity and equipment. So part of addressing the equipment is also having handheld readings throughout the day and report out on those. So this is our site monitoring plan with the locations. You can see surrounding the site within 90 feet, there are a multitude of monitors from vibration, monitoring wells for dewatering, dust and noise, and optical monitoring points. We did make an exception to the 90-foot requirement from our EOR. We installed a vibration monitor at the firehouse just to maintain continuity from the previous project. So that has been in place. Surveys have been taken, pre-construction surveys of these areas. For dust mitigation, we use water sprayers throughout the site. In areas where there's a lot of traffic, it's more manageable that way. The dirt glue is a very good tool, but in areas where there's traffic, it moved around and then it's just useless. So it's better to use the water in areas of movement, and we use dirt glue in areas where there's not much traffic or not much going on the site. Other than that, we cover the truckloads, we do washout stations, so there's no soil or dirt running off the streets. So these are just some of the mitigations we use for dust. Noise mitigation, we have installed sound blankets on our perimeter site fence. We've also installed some sound blankets along the front path. This is more to absorb and reduce the bouncing of the sound waves going off of the equipment. On top of that, we have a secondary barrier of sound blankets. You can see here a picture taken along one of the drilling equipment. Sound blankets are thrown there over that fence. We have since installed these barriers. You can see in the right image, these are movable barriers, and they follow the major equipment of the drill rigs. Kind of like a second level of sound attenuation. So the noise is not just going to be coming off of here. We want to control the noise as we're going vertical, even though it's a few years away. We're looking at other options for our hoists. We're going to be putting covers and sound blankets around those motors for those hoists that are operating. And we're continuing to look at mitigation measures which we plan later stages of construction. Here is the CCL office information. Our community construction liaison is Happy Shu here, which is very helpful. So please, we're welcome to call any questions or to inform us if you see anything about it. Frequently asked questions. Reporting is something that was brought up earlier in this meeting. Right now, we have compared February, March, and April. Those reports should be on the BBC website, and we're now working on the May report, which will include all the readings that we talked about. Following June, we want to start incorporating our handheld reports. We were training our team for the past month on how to use them, and they agreed throughout the day. So those will also be those reports starting after June. Dust monitors, as we look at the monitoring plan, there are 6 active dust monitors on the site. And of course, we have the handhelds as well. Dust exceedances. So we mentioned wind earlier. Winds can affect the readings, both increasing them or having them lower. So we're always really careful in using our handheld again. Really important to stay on top of that, make sure we have as accurate data as possible. Talking about noise exceedance protocol. If there are exceedances from what our limits are, we'll investigate that area, pause, and see what we can do to avoid that problem going forward. Adjacent building monitoring. So we have done pre-construction surveys for 11 adjacent properties. The more sensitive properties are directly to the north, Turnpike, and the courthouse to the south. We have additional tilt meters that also measure tilt, not just movement and vibration. So those are in place. We of course have done pre-construction surveys. So those are in place. We should note here that there were 3 of the surrounding properties that we were not granted access to do our interior surveys. So just something worth noting. But we did scan them from the outside, so we have them. Just mentioned chunk pack, and the biaxial meters and optical vibration that is ongoing. Unexpected subsurface conditions. This is relative to environmental. We had some initial environmental borings completed early on in the job. Those borings did not indicate any contaminated soil. As we have been excavating, we did not find any archaeological findings yet. hopefully you won't find any, we don't want to disturb that, or any VOCs. So we have an archaeologist on the site as we excavate. That archaeologist is monitoring whatever we excavate out. And of course, VOC, we have our environmental engineer on site monitoring those as we excavate.
Define what a VOC is for those that don't know.
Sure, it's a volatile gas with certain organic compounds that after long periods of time can produce these volatile gases, which are not healthy at all. So we have not found these yet. These typically come from like whether it's petroleum or benzene, stuff like that. It's not my background, but that's basically what a volatile emission would be. And dewatering contamination, as we are extracting water, we have certain guidelines that were set by our permits, which were reviewed by VP, Department of Conservation, and we're following those. We're using a settling tank, so as the water comes out, any solids can sink, and any type of oils, natural oils, can go to the top and be separated from what we discharge. Sorry, it's a lot of talking, but it's a lot of information.
And are there more to your presentation?
This is the presentation, but I will take questions. Please.
Yeah. A little bit of table J, yes. Thank you. So, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Katharina Utami. I'm the Deputy Engagement Manager for the Borough Base Jail Project. We also have DDC team here, City Hall team. We also have our CCL coming in today, and here in person. I believe we also have Lauren Missier, my colleague, also joining through Zoom. And also, I believe we have EOC team as well. It's either under the name Addie Ball or Alex Maldonado. So if anyone have questions for them, and if I call you in, or if you want to chime in, feel free to just raise your hand so you can get into the speaker or.
Right, okay.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to thank you for the presentation. I want to ask that everybody remains respectful in the way they question, and again, to my earlier point, try to find a way that is going to be helpful to move forward in whatever way you suggest. So we can really make this work in some way that's going to give peace of mind. It's a tremendous amount of information and it's a tremendous amount of impact. So I hope that everybody can work together successfully for this meeting. Okay, so are there questions from public or from, I think, we start Henry with the table here. So go ahead, Jeff.
A couple questions. First of all, on excavation, that's probably the largest source of dust is the excavation work. Are you going all the way down to bedrock or?
No, certainly not.
So how do you dewater, I guess, mud? So we're dewatering as low as we need to go before, so we can excavate. So it's gonna be anywhere between 20 feet from where the natural state is. The water's at about 0, so it will be about 20, 25. That will vary, of course, it's a large site. There's different, the earth, the way the water flows through the earth, depending on the, trying to find the word, it varies. So it might be 10 here, 12. And so the excavation itself, how?
The excavation will go down about 40 feet from the street level.
What did you say?
40 feet from the street level.
40?
Yes. The bedrock is more than double.
Okay, so that's nonetheless quite a bit of excavation.
Yes.
And then I have a comment and suggestion, I guess it's really a DDC point probably. And that is, I'm not sure who the right person to direct this to is.
Raise a hand. There you go.
Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself so everyone
Sure.
knows your.
Jeff Cordovez, I head up communications with ET.
So I think that although I don't doubt that your contractors are doing appropriate air monitoring and vibration monitoring, but I think we buy an awful lot of community comfort and goodwill if you had an independent monitor. Money well spent, then as I understand it, employed for part of this project and certainly other projects. We've seen urgent stuff.
So you're stealing a thunder. We actually are bringing on an independent monitor. So we obviously heard the community boards advocacy, the community's advocacy, the elected officials. So our goal is to bring them on early July. So not too far.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you. Tammy.
My question goes with the monitoring. I've got a couple, but I'll just back to Jeff directly. One of the things that I thought was not as productive as it could or should have been was the length of time from the monitoring to the reporting.
Yes.
It's not serving the public good or the public well. And when there have been exceedances, telling someone 6 weeks to 8 weeks later, for example, or June 15th, their monitoring reports from May are not out yet. It's not like the data isn't there. The data's already there. But now by the time it comes out, right? Let's just say it's another week it comes out. It's then 7 weeks old, 8 weeks old, and it's not actually helping build any kind of trust in the project. And this has been consistent from the beginning. So I'm looking and saying, I am delighted and thank you so much for the independent monitor. But we really want to get to something that is timely. And if it's going to be a week of exceedances or a week of issues, then the people need to know in the local community, close their windows, have a filter, and really be careful about traveling around that building. There are tons of small businesses on Baxter Street. We don't want to lose them. We want to encourage everything that we can to retain the businesses during the project. It's many years of project. So I urge you to take a look at how you structure this contract and how you can revise the reporting that's already being done to ensure A, there is data and it is backed up. And there's never a point that there is not data. I'll give you a one-off. But the NYU reporting is a little petrifying to me. And that's, I mean, I think being an educated consumer is dangerous for you guys, but we've already lived through 9/11. We've lived through the government saying, don't worry, you're fine. So there's a little bit of skepticism in this community, which is justified. So I really would love to see monitoring that is reported out in the month for the month, that it's not 6 to 8 weeks. Not understanding if you're collecting data Monday to Friday, why the following week we can't get that data.
So 100%, I think we've heard that, especially, I know you brought this up before, in fairness to you. I can't tell you exactly how frequently it's going to come out as part of the next phase that we're talking about here, but it will be shorter than a month. So that is one of the tasks of the independent monitor, trying to figure out how we can get that information to the community. I think George highlighted some of the steps that we are trying to take to be a little more proactive in handheld monitors. The independent monitor will have a presence on site for a majority of the working hours. So there will be somebody who is visible and available to review what is happening from the contract perspective.
But I guess I'm going back to what
Well,
George said,
one question per person, unless it's something.
but this goes back with George. George is not currently preparing reports based on the current monitoring that they're doing beyond the independent monitoring that gives the information publicly available now in a timely manner.
So we will, my assumption would be we will continue to provide the monthly reports. We will try and get the data to the public at large on a more frequent basis. Serena, if you want to.
Yes, and then just want to highlight, if you see or hear anything or feel any vibration, you are
we're very welcoming for anyone to call or email Shu. Shu is available for you to get into the call, let you know what's happening, what are you experiencing, and Shu is really good at like following up with the project management team to check like what's up, what's going on, what's the data, what's the reading, so we can like share with you like more information.
And you
over
have a
time.
neon sign outside for the neighborhood to know what that number is to call.
So we publish a bulletin every week to our community list. If you don't
No,
receive
no,
the,
outside on the site, on the fence,
I
on the
believe,
wall.
No.
We need to do that.
We could look into that, that's fine.
could look into that, yeah.
Not look into it, do it. That would be very, very good. The signage is so great. Thank you.
Thanks, so.
I'm always on the sign.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
So first question from me, we'll come back around, I'm sure. The data gaps that we heard about, what are you doing about that to ensure that there are no data gaps or truly minimal? And I don't know if it's going to be an issue going forward, but could you talk to us about the data disappearance? Why that may have happened? Can we get that data? Can we find out why we can't? And can you assure us that they will not happen again?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure exactly what happened during the dismantling project. My guess is that we just had small batteries, because it's common for these issues to go out, but I wasn't part of that job. What we're doing is we're installing larger batteries with higher capacity. We have a technician on site. We constantly keep tabs on these piece of equipment. And of course, we have the extra batteries there on site, so the interruptions should be minimal. for that equipment. While we're servicing that piece of equipment, we have redundancy in the rest of the monitors, and we have the endpoints to verify. Yeah, I can't speak for it.
Just related, is the data from the handhelds integrated with the data from the static monitor?
It will be, yes, we just started implementing those this month in June, so this should be included in June reports going forward.
Okay.
Thanks. Eric, you.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to know, would water trucks being driven around the block, also around maybe on Mulberry and Columbus Park, help reduce the dust? I mean, of course, you want to prevent the dust from getting aerosolized, but for the dust that's already that gets out there, is there any way to capture it so it doesn't remain in the air a long time? That's why I'm thinking about having a water truck circulate, go around the block periodically. I wouldn't say flood the streets, but at least create a wet environment so that the dust can be contained and maybe perhaps go into the sewer.
I'm not sure if everybody would be in agreement with that in the community to spray the streets and sidewalks. But it's something that we can take a look at, but for right now, we're not planning on doing.
It's getting nice.
Okay, other folks who have not, yes, Henry.
Seconds, so I'm a architect in community design, and I wanted to ask about the cement piles and the north wall. It seemed like when you mentioned that you were not getting around the foundation to existing previous NBC foundations. How does this kind of wall interact with those foundations?
It bypasses it. The secant wall stays a certain distance from
Those are indoors.
Inboard, yes, correct.
But the building that's to be built is abutting this.
We're maintaining the requirements for the distance between the two, the facade of the trunk pack and the kind of facade.
Okay.
The ratio.
Second question about the groundwater limits. I saw it was 2 feet and 5 feet. Can you just elaborate on that? I think there's a lot of sensitivity to the whole building's own conditions. That groundwater level changes would essentially block the foundations and cause significant damage for buildings. And 2 feet and 5 feet.
That's a great question. And
if we go back to the image or it's available, the water table outside of the perimeter of the project, it's not gonna fluctuate from hour to hour. It's gonna maintain the same characteristics as it has. There you go. So you can see the water table on the outside limits, that will be maintained. There's no dewatering going on now. The dewatering is happening within within those walls. As you can see, the dewatering system, it's kind of hard to see there, but there's this piping that's going down within the site, the secants. And that's to make sure that the level in the outside is maintained and why it goes all the way down to bedrock.
Or, I mean, I know the intent, but, it's not really science that is, did we land into for with points of the risks, the dewatering process that's, known to be a full process, and there are other issues that happen in the bedrock, if it's the bedrock, or water to go down further. So I think, well, so is the groundwater limit that is noted in the report say that the water outside the site could go from 2 feet or even some change?
You're correct. So Langen, the report you're referencing is we're following that Langen is our geotechnical engineer. So we're taking them very seriously. They're some of the best in the world. That -2 is monitored outside the site.
Right.
Okay.
So we're taking one.
George, if you can show the monitor. Oh,
Yeah, I'm a Renaissance pilots. I was also the previous like a geotechnical engineer, so this is a little bit in my wheelhouse, but do you mind if I just?
Please, right ahead.
So these secant piles, they create a sealed bathtub around the site. They're socketed right into the rock. That's not only there's no water going underneath the secant piles. Now, the question is there any gaps between the secant piles, right? There could be. Yeah, it's not a perfect installation. Sometimes there can be gaps. That's what the monitoring wells all around the site do. So if there's any fluctuation on the outside of it, the monitoring wells will capture that. If it's 2 feet, it'll set off an alarm. If it's 5 feet, it'll set off a bigger alarm. That's when mitigation started happening.
Right.
If it's 5 feet anywhere around it, what happens is dewatering stops. They investigate. They check out the neighboring wells, and they make sure the water table is steady. They don't do anything until it comes back up. There are different mitigations to fix that. There are recharge wells. You can pump more water back into the outside to drain the water table. And you can try to figure out what's going on in the second pile and plug the hole with more concrete pumping in down on the inside of the bathtub. Now, the fluctuation on the outside, what I've learned is whether through rain or like seawater rise, there's a 3-foot fluctuation throughout the year. So 2 feet is actually like, you might just hit it just from a large rain event.
Can you explain like what the water table even means for the buildings?
Sure, yeah. So the water table, sorry, give me a second. So the water table is all the soil is kind of like a sponge. And the water, you know how water leaves a sponge, it starts to shrink.
Is it sinkholes you're worried about?
No, it's if the soil starts to shrink, then the buildings will settle.
Oh.
And that's the worry. So that's why it's important to keep the water steady on the outside and on all the surrounding properties. So that's one way that we keep the water table even. Now, this is really like a belt and suspenders like system. This secant pile wall keeps the inside communicating with the outside. And then we also have monitors on the outside to make sure that there's no holes. That kind of answers your question, there's more. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
Just following up here, that was very helpful, but are you following all these protocols and what protections are gonna be in place for the buildings around?
100%.
And if there is a problem, what's the
mitigation.
Yeah, is there a default? Yeah, if they don't follow, what happens?
Something happens to a neighboring building, that's why the contractor did reconstruction surveys, that's why they're monitoring. They have insurance, after there's damage, that's assessed, and we try and make everyone whole.
Oh, so-
So, okay, well,
It was clear that the monitoring goals were outside of ours. Thank you for jumping in and clarifying that. You did not clarify that it's on the outside. My next question is, you're gonna get monitoring reports for environmental impact. That seems to me an environmental impact report we should be getting. Are we gonna get environmental impact reports, not on a monthly basis, but on a much more live basis for the monitoring wells? And do we have a plan yet of where the monitoring wells are gonna be placed? Do we know that yet?
Yes, that's part of our monitoring plan. It's been approved by DOB.
Okay, so I have spoiled several times now. Several monitoring plans, construction transportation monitoring, I just sent an email out today. The email that has been given back to me by letter to me is that we can't find them yet, we're still searching for them. I also found out today there's an archaeological person site, I've asked for an archaeological plan to protect, and I still have not seen that. The community member that is concerning to me. It has now been 4 months since February passed. This is all news to me that this is all here. I asked for a construction and transportation monitoring plan. I asked for many plans. And the construction protection plan is also supposed to be provided. Where are those plans? See, I pointed them several times, multiple times. 5 months now. Sorry, Alice.
no, I,
I have foiled politely. I have not received them yet.
it's a fair question. Maybe we can get an answer. I mean, I know you're not the background, but.
I think the purpose of the FOIL, the perspective from the FOIL folks, they want to give you everything at once, so that's what they're waiting for all that information to be completed and available to you.
And it is completed, right?
This is essentially what is you're going to see in the FOIL. I understand it's not the same thing, but I can follow up again tomorrow. I know we talked about this earlier today. I'm going to make that request.
But if your contractor has a plan, like a literal plan,
Yeah.
describe all this, then why can that plan? I trust mine. Drawings. And I'm asking the reason why can that be provided to us?
Again, I will follow up again with the FOIL officer. We spoke more, so we can provide it with tomorrow.
It seems to be a point that comes up, not just here, this is many, if you could please follow through with that and also implement the community board, so we're aware of it
Yes.
for all the questions that come up. And it's a very fair point. So to the point on archaeology, where is that? I mean, that was one of my questions. Where is that plan?
So that was submitted to the LPC, was accepted, and we
When was that done?
saw earlier this year.
Yeah, and I foiled that in February.
February.
And I gave a list of things.
Okay, so. Jeff,
I understand.
look, it's just absolutely untenable that the agencies that the taxpayers support cannot answer a FOIL even partially. If the archaeological report was, and plan was put in place earlier this year, months ago, we should not be hearing. An agency should be able to say, if you FOIL for A, then B, then C, then D, oh, we've now gotten A, B, C, and D, we'll just wait until it's all done. If they're asking for specifics, just provide them as they go along. It's a little confusing to me how I have the lovely George over here telling me, we have filed this, we've been approved for that, we filed this, we've been approved for that. And then I've got the community saying that the city says, yes, we'll get back to you. Searching. So I'm kind of at a, I'm kind of at,
Whoa, okay.
I'm kind of at a loss because I don't know what to say. It's like, as an agency head, I want the other agencies to be responsive. It's not just for us to be, hollering for the community. George is here. We're going through detailed questions. We've got the folks explaining everything. It's an amazing presentation that just could be better if we're not having to ask the same questions 12 times.
So could we ask that by July 1st, we've got some sense of the arrival of some of these, if not all, and that the community is quite strong on the point, we don't need them all at once. So,
Yes, we will get back to you before July 1st.
With information, not a, okay, we'll get back to you.
With information.
okay, Go ahead, Vera.
Yeah, I want to go back to your other point. So if something, God forbid, should happen to one of the surrounding buildings, right?
Yes.
Or the whatever, your answer is that, don't worry, insurance will take care of it? Or will the contractor be held accountable? Is there a provision in their contract that calls them in default?
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. So if there are any problems with the building, DOB is the agency that has authority. They will come assess, they will work with the EDC, they will work with the contractor. What remedy is that would be the first step. What I was referring to is if there's determined that there's going to be an assessment, the contractor does have insurance. Yeah, I was just giving the legal answer. Before any of that happens, we have very detailed monitoring and movement vibration. That is all put together by engineers and is reviewed by DOBs. And it's to avoid all that. After that something happens, then it's just that.
Will we have to say that
Well, okay, go ahead. It's Sheffield.
we need to be able to see those? We have to back into this, that's something we have to make sure that your people who are there on site are doing everything. Buildings, plots, lot.
Okay, we're coming into 8 o'clock. We do have the entire resiliency plan EIS to look at. So just as a reminder, so Jan, something new. Eric?
First of all, I think the presentation that you saw is full of tremendous amounts of facts that are very, very detailed, that are very difficult to do. Unfortunately, the builder that's working on the Brooklyn jail and Manhattan jail has one of the worst OSHA violation histories in the whole country compared to other large builders. This is one of the worst. I want to frame this in the sense that, yes, we are looking at digging holes into the ground that are 100 feet into bedrock with a deflection of inches over a 2-acre site. So think about that for a minute. We have a site that's 2 acres wide and somebody has to put holes in there to hold these walls down, and within inches, this whole thing can fail. And just give you an idea, we are under the assumption that EDC has had a traffic plan. EDC has received a mitigation plan to talk about how they're going to protect the public. 3 times those barriers that are supposed to protect us from dying have failed. They fell in February 2026 at the Manhattan site. They fell again in the Brooklyn site during demolition. And most recently, they fell at Brooklyn, and a man on a motorcycle was trapped underneath these fences. And the reason why they fell is because this contractor and the subcontractor didn't open up these plastic barriers, which are ubiquitous throughout the city, and fill them with water. When they're empty, they weigh 85 pounds. When they're full, they weigh 900 pounds. They were not interlocking, they were not pinned. Someone almost died. And with regard to death, someone died at the Brooklyn site. And there's a high risk with this particular builder that will happen again, because if history is what it is, you can see that they have a long history of this. My question to DDC is, when as we as a community can feel safe? We've seen examples where near death and death have happened, and we're not even a couple of years into this. You have several more jails to build. We have a skyscraper jail that's going to be built. We have a foundation that's going to go down 100 feet into the ground. None of that sounds like it's reasonable if they can't follow manufacturer directions to fill a barrier with water. So I appreciate all the details, but if we don't have agencies that are going to look at and cover our backs as a community, I don't have faith in any of this, and neither does my community. We have heard from a lot of people that are living around that site that they do not trust what's going on. And so I think that it is time to look at an alternative that doesn't involve a deep foundation and put housing on that site and shorten the time frame of exposure by years. By years. Just want to set that context.
Thanks. Thanks. Are there other comments? Yes, new and
So I just wanted to say, I hope George gets to come back since he revealed information that maybe he shouldn't have, or he's going to get a talking to. And so we We appreciate that there's been verification that there's information that hasn't been foiled or this type of thing. So I just wanted to thank you for your candor. It's an imperfect system, but we are desperate for information and we want to make sure that there's another meeting where you get to come back to. So we don't know how things work behind the scenes. So, no, we don't know. So I'm just gonna put it out there because we can laugh at it, but at the same time, what can happen sometimes is just it goes radio silence. And we've seen that with other agencies and other projects where the community just gets less when we actually have something like this instead of more. So I hope we can just put an olive branch out and say, let's continue in the right direction. So we appreciate any of those efforts. Thank you.
Okay, Vera, that would be.
Yeah, I just have a question about after hours work. There's not gonna be any after hours work Monday through Saturday, correct?
There's very little after hours work.
What about
That is the current status.
in the foreseeable future
Again, that's the information we have right
and towards the end of the project?
now. I can't answer that. Yeah, there's no current after hours work. If something changes, obviously we'll.
A quick question, you mentioned the migration of the various monitors in place in adjacent buildings. Is there a list of those addresses available?
Should be available. Let's put it in our monitoring plan. Actually, we have it in our presentation.
Yeah.
Give you a good indication there.
There's the plan up there.
Okay.
No,
This presentation will also get uploaded to the BBJ website, so you'll be able to access it. I think by tomorrow morning, we will have them up in the website. So if you take a look at like the slides and you have any questions, there's also Shu's email and phone number on that slide as well. So feel free to reach out to us.
It would be awesome.
Alice,
again.
may I ask a question? Alice?
sure, Eric. Is that Eric?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I heard and I saw in the presentation about the vibration monitoring equipment. Does that also include elevation changes? Because you mentioned that with the dewatering, that could cause some of the buildings to settle. I mean, not due to vibrations, but just to settle because of the changes in groundwater. So is elevation also monitored?
Movement is monitored, which is read the access. So yeah, any type of movement on those buildings. So our optical monitors will be able to be realized.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're coming to a close. I'm looking around the room. We have two more hands to the outside, and I think that will
And then
close it down.
We didn't hear the answer to whether or not you're gonna be fully closing Baxter Center when you do your installation.
Fully closed?
So I'm so sad.
Installation monitoring. No, it's done.
Oh.
This is all has been installed. All this work is.
So we have two more. Okay, John Alpert.
Hi,
John?
thank you very much. And in the sort of collaborative spirit that you asked us to try to achieve, I'd like to say, let's go Knicks and let's go Cape Verde. But these plans for dewatering are pretty scary. And they're even scarier now that you guys have hired away our independent geotech engineering firm and put them on your payroll. And in trying to replace this protection for our vulnerable firehouse, I've been talking to other engineers, and when I showed them your plan, this bathtub plan, they started rolling their eyes. And they say, yes, it sometimes works, but it sometimes doesn't. And they thought it would be important that you would pledge to put physiometers in all the vulnerable sites and allow us to have access to those readings. Because of the points that Vera and Jan and other people have said, your reporting on dangerous situations hasn't been so good. So would you guys commit to be putting physiometers in the dangerous buildings so we can know when our water table's going down? Thank you very much.
Rating a bit for what a physiometer is.
Sean, what do you, can you, I don't know if you heard the question, just to.
I'm sorry, it's hard, the audio is it's pretty garbled, and so I didn't hear what that question was. I'm very sorry.
I met with John and he was explaining whether or not wells could be put, either in his building, on his building, in the foundations of his building to see the water level all through the project. And if there are that ability to extend them beyond the, area, because currently his building is not within the monitoring area. And it is a landmark building. The monitors were taken off of this building after grandma.
You mean a piezometer?
Yeah, piezometer.
I thought you addressed that this morning, is it?
Yeah, so we have, to the extent of the water table, we are monitoring exactly the area where the watering would be happening. So I'm not sure who you spoke to, but if we're monitoring the water table outside of the site, it's not gonna have any effect down the street in terms of water. Now, vibration monitoring, we have that installed in our house, but I can't make that commitment. Doesn't make sense.
So if you'll allow me 1 second, the reason why we are in the firehouse and why the city abandoned the firehouse is exactly this situation where the water table was drawn down in previous construction and rotted out half the piles in the building. When Musa Rutledge, which is your current consulting engineer, examined them 40 years ago, they said that half of the piles need to be replaced, the other half need to be closely monitored, and if there's any construction in the area, our building would be in serious danger. And they are now your construction engineers.
Just for clarification, they are not. We have Langen as a technical.
Musa said you hired them as consultants.
For our design, we have Langen engineer. They might have been used for some third party, but really the design of the project is Langen engineer.
Okay, but can you understand why we're scared, sir? Can you?
Sorry, if you want to send this request and we'll look at it further, but dewatering your buildings, the proximity is not really relevant to our operations, but we appreciate the question and we'll look at your request.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for considering it.
Estimate of reports, the water table thing is the thing that concerns me for the surrounding. That is this is a ancient community, very old buildings that are around it, messing with the water table under the hopes that there's not one crack either in the secant wall that you put down or the bedrock, quite frankly, is a little nerve-wracking. So I would love to see more information, whether it could be sent to us on studies that were done, how far from the site were studied, for changes in the water table. You mentioned sea level rise and how that would affect in here and when. I think would be really important kinds of conversations to happen. This is the first time we're going down to bedrock in this area. Nothing's gone down, period. So this is extraordinarily unusual for anywhere else in this area. There's nothing else that's this deep, nothing else this tall, and so I'd like to hear more versus don't worry, we're gonna be fine. See what kind of engineering reports you could share with the community board for the surrounding neighborhood. I'm not worried about the courthouse. I'm worried about the small buildings that are old.
We appreciate it. We just ask BBC and we'll see a little bit more. Just to be clear, the courthouse does go down to that project.
I understand, but that's the courthouse, and that's been there quite a long time. And when the courthouse was built, just not, when was the courthouse built, 1920 something? 28, right? This is 100 years later, basically, is what we're talking about. With 100 years of changes to bedrock, changes to the water table, as you mentioned, sea level rise. So I'd love to hear and see a little bit more. I find that the most disconcerting and worrying part.
Okay, can you provide that in some way? I mean, that seems to be.
Some scientific articles about seawater that we found in various.
The studies
But,
for here.
The studies for here, yeah, just we can provide it to BBC if you want to ask them to say. I don't want to speak for them, so.
Well, Jeff, can you give us a summary of what you can provide, how we're gonna move forward here? So there are really legitimate concerns and you can hear that they're pretty, and they're gonna be watched for the next 10 years. So let us find a way to get the information to the public that's gonna be helpful. So that's your unfortunate, it's better or worse your job. So
And
what do you
those
got?
we know already had to have existed in order.
So
for you
let
to-
him respond. I'll tell you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Jeff?
Yes.
can you- Yeah. Yes, you agree that you will
I'm gonna
provide,
foil and then we can figure out what it is you're requesting here. This one.
okay, so maybe when we receive the FOIL requests for some piece of them, we can then reconvene. I don't know if it's gonna be as early as July, that would be swell, but if not, September, but better July would be really important, I think, because the community board doesn't meet in August. Just for whatever you have, so that you can continue, just, you don't have to do a full board press here, but, occasional review of these very important questions. And maybe, it doesn't have to be everything, so that we can kind of get to the next chapter of this, if in fact we do. So I don't know, I'm looking to you all. Are there other things that, in summary, I think we're good, okay, okay, this is gonna be the last question from someone named Anna G. Welcome, Anna, and then we will close it out. And thanks, everyone. Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we hear you, go ahead. Hi.
Okay. Hi, I have a question about the dewatering and the concrete. Concrete is porous and is subject to cracking when there are freeze-thaw cycles. And I'm a little concerned because of this massive amount of concrete that's going to be used. Has there been any place of comparable size that has this type of concrete foundation?
All over the city, all over the north. This is
This size, 2 acres solid?
all over the city, all
this
over the
deep?
north. Bread and butter.
Pardon?
Okay, so,
Yeah, this is very common type of mass concrete foundation and system. That's it.
so at your next visit, which we hope will be in July, that's actually a nice way to end in that I think precedent, similar projects, waste that dealt with in dewatering from Henry's Point. To see that and understand that more would probably help us all a great deal. So maybe add that to our upcoming presentation when we've got the FOIL requests in hand. Is there anything else? Otherwise, I think we can close out this topic, and really a big thank you to you all from the Borough-based jail group, and very much to the whole health center at NYU and all the Chinatown groups that were here. Jan, thank you, Vera, everybody. Okay. Moving on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I look forward to hopefully seeing you in July.
Yeah, we hope to see you again.
Map.
Thank you.
I still use it. Because we don't have been under contract. So. Within the day. So I-
I actually think that would be really. I think one of the things is trying to. I think we're fine, even though. I don't know, this water came, goes up, down, goes. Like the old one.
Yes.
But anyway, it is very big.
But I'm just understand the impacts of where different water county plan now. And so that's the outside.
You can take that off, if you want to, that's fine.
Is it too big?
Pretty tiny, it's,
Great.
yes.
I would say, that was fascinating.
Yeah, thank you so much, sorry.
What do they call it?
I'll have 1 minute, of a switch over here.
Good job, that was.
Next one up.
If I could just, could I ask everybody to be quiet, in the room or to go outside the room if you'd like to chat. The FIDI and Seaport Fortifying Our Resilient Growth and Economy Forge. This is a look at the scoping potential here, on behalf of the community board to speak to what will happen at scoping for this project. I just want to know who is, can you just tell us who's here from your end of the?
Yes, we're a smaller group in person. I'm Rachel Anderson. I'm with EDC and Neighborhood Strategies. I'm Casey Peterson with their cadence. But our primary presenters are online. It's a big yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Hogan from APRF was the other.
Okay, so Alexis, you're muted, but welcome. And Diana. Hi there. Old friends of here. Well, thanks for sticking it out. You're not being heard. You're both on mute. Can you unmute them or do they need to?
They can unmute themselves.
Yeah, I don't understand why they're
They're
not,
panelists.
but they're not.
Alexis, you have to unmute yourself.
It looks like neither one. No, it looks like she's not happy. It's not happening. Thank you all for sticking it out for the first half of this story that we have 2 big items on the same night. That often happens, but as you all know, these comments are due now because or not today, but July 16th, as I recall, which will be, of course, prior to the end of the July. So we, Martina and I have spent a fair amount of time looking this over. I hope that you've all reviewed the document because otherwise it's going to be a little bit, difficult for you. But I know Martina also set up the wonderful resolution that we've that I certainly have reviewed with her and we'll ask you to look at just as a skeleton of maybe comments you might want to consider. Very much a draft. We did this to help you out so that we weren't here all night, just so
Okay, I'd ask a quick technical question. Jennifer Hogan, I think you're involved in presenting.
Yes, yeah.
Jennifer, should be. Jennifer, it looks like you don't have your audio connected. Are you able to come off mute or raise your hand?
Or she can fall. She can fall in. Yeah, that's what you were saying, right? Richard? Or are you saying that? To use the cell phone?
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, but the resolutions that are in front of the committee members, it's going to sort of separate the committee members and the public because that is only for the committee members.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's just the draft, the working draft, so we don't want to go out into the public at large. Okay.
Jennifer, are you able to raise your hand? It looks like your audio isn't even connected, so I can't request you to unmute.
Our hands, Alexis is raising her.
Oh, Alexis, okay, I don't know who it is.
Alexis, are you getting the request unmute your phone?
Why am I not able to unmute myself? Start.
Yeah, it shouldn't be an issue, but especially because I'm outside.
There's an EDC junction here somewhere.
You're not able to. I'm sending a request unmute notification. Alexis,
Diana, can you unmute?
Can you give them a phone number?
I can unmute, but I'm not one of the presenters this evening. So I think Jennifer and Alexis are most important to be able to unmute.
They might have to log back out.
Diana figured out what happened. You're the chief.
Alexis, Alexis, I sent you a request unmute notification. You should be able to just click OK, and that'll allow you to unmute.
The face is not indicating success.
That's why I said sign out, sign back in here.
Should we do that? Yeah. That's right. That would.
Okay. Jennifer, if you're also able to, if you're planning to present, log back out and then join the meeting again, I think that will hopefully get you connected to audio. Or you can feel free to chat me directly if there are specific issues that you're having and not able to articulate.
Diana, it must be because we just love you more.
Is there anyone is there any part of this presentation that could happen now while we try to solve this problem, or no? No? Okay, this is a vote for the reason to have in-house folks always here.
Okay, Alexis, I will make you a panelist. And I'm sending you a request unmute notification. Are you receiving that?
If it doesn't work, I'll send her my log.
Choose a symbol.
Oh.
Sure.
Jennifer Hogan just stressed star 6.
Okay. Yeah, I would need to know.
Okay,
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yay! Yeah.
Okay.
All right, hit it.
We need one more.
All right,
Don't
one
hit it
more.
yet. No.
Sorry.
All right, as long as we have Jennifer Hogan, we are good to go.
We do not have Jennifer Hogan yet.
We don't have her yet.
But I am working to make that happen. Okay. Jennifer, oh, sorry, that was not right. Jennifer, are you receiving a request unmute
Is
notification?
this Tommy? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Yay! Thank
All
you.
right, we have Jennifer. Thank you for that
Okay,
interlude.
Thank you.
Alexis, do you want me to make you a presenter and you can share the screen, or do you want me to walk through your slides?
No, you can go ahead and share. You have a more reliable sharing, and I'll say next.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're starting the 5-day support Forge doping update.
Great.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your patience as we figured out the technological difficulties. I'm Alexis Taylor, New York City Economic Development Corporation, and I can't be there in person tonight due to travel, but you are joined in the room by my colleague, Rachel Aronson, who is Vice President of Waterfronts, and Casey Peterson from our consultant team, Arcadis. And we're joined by additional consultants online from Arcadis and AKRF. Jennifer Hogan, who's online, will also be co-presenting with me. And then, of course, you all know Diana Sweetheart from EDC.
Great.
Next slide. Next slide, please. Great. So tonight we're going to provide an overview. Sorry, you're hearing yelling in the background. We're going to provide an overview of what it means to undergo a Section 203 feasibility study and pursue project authorization through the Water Resources Development Act, or WRDA. We will also discuss the NEPA review process and scope of the EIS analysis and go over the study's purpose and objectives. And finally, we will walk through the public engagement schedule and next steps on how to get involved. Next slide. Give me 1 second.
She's traveling right now, travel with difficulties, so she's in person, so.
Just for the show of hands, how many people did get a chance to review these documents that were sent around?
Quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly, yeah.
Thanks, I just was.
Okay, I'm back. Apologies. All right, so I think the community board is familiar with these documents. The published reports are available online on our website. But the FIDI Seaport Climate Resilience Master Plan, that first document you see on the left side, was released in 2021. And then we recently released an update in 2025, which advanced the design further. In order to advance this project with federal funding, the city has made the decision to pursue a partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers. And that's to advance a Section 203 Coastal Storm Risk Management feasibility study and environmental review. And this project is now referred to as FIDI Forge, which is fortifying our regional growth and economy. And the scoping period, I'm happy to say, recently began on May 28th, and it runs through July 14th. And I have some details about some forthcoming scoping meetings that will take place next week. And we have those dates at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So I'm sure many of you are asking, what is Section 203? Well, the way that the Army Corps works is they actually refer to their guiding authorizations as the section and year in which it was published or passed by Congress. And so in this case, Section 203 was part of the Water Resources Development Act of 1986. And then I'm required to say as amended, because in subsequent WRDA acts, it has been amended in law by Congress. But basically, to break it down, what Section 203 allows is for the non-federal interest, which in this case is the city of New York, to undertake feasibility studies of proposed water resource development projects for submission directly to the Secretary of the Army. And that's for federal participation and cost sharing. So this essentially means that the city can conduct its own feasibility study, and we need to follow Army Corps procedures in that feasibility study. And if approved, it could result in the availability of federal funding, having followed all of those federal procedures. So the city will be conducting this study. And then we have technical support and other defined support from the Army Corps in the form of federal assistance or, again, technical assistance. So once this plan is finalized, it's then submitted to the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, and they evaluate the plan and the reports to Congress. They'll ultimately make a recommendation to Congress whether or not the project is feasible, and they provide any recommendations concerning the project planning, design, or conditions for construction. That goes to congressional committees for inclusion and authorization in the Water Resource Development Act. And typically, WRDA, the Water Resource Development Act, is passed every 2 years by Congress. It's been pretty consistent for the last few cycles that it's passed every 2 years. But just to note, the project is authorized in that 2-year cycle of a WRDA bill, but appropriation of funds come through separate congressional action. So that could come through an omnibus bill, it could come through a separate funding bill. Sometimes they separate them out into transportation and housing and urban development funding bills. It really depends on the year, but the appropriation is separate from the authorization of the project. Next slide. So we're currently just in this initiation phase of the Section 203 process. I'm also happy to say we recently executed memorandums of agreement, so signed MOAs with the Army Corps of Engineers, and we've agreed to the scopes of work. This allows the Army Corps of Engineers to partner with us on this study. They'll be providing technical assistance, and also importantly, they will be the lead NEPA agency. Federal NEPA requires that there is a lead federal agency, and in this case, it will be the Army Corps of Engineers. And as I mentioned before, we just began the scoping period, the public scoping period, and that will run from May 28th through July 14th. After the scoping period, New York City EDC will produce a draft integrated interim report, and that will contain both the feasibility study and a draft environmental impact statement. The draft report will be made available for public comment, and that is another opportunity beyond the scoping phase for the public to weigh in and submit public comments as part of the record. We are targeting right now that we'll have that draft integrated feasibility and draft EIS report released sometime in the spring of 2027. We will then incorporate comments into the final report, and that is the report that ultimately will be submitted to the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Federal Works. It then goes into interagency review, and ultimately there will be issued a record of decision. The Assistant Secretary submits a report, as I mentioned before, to Congress, and they give an assessment, and then Congress reviews the materials as part of the formal WRDA process. And then the project would need to receive authorization and appropriations. As I mentioned before, these are usually separate actions. So finally, the next slide, I just, as for the Section 203, and then I'll hand it to my colleague to cover the environmental review portions of the report. But just to give you a sense of kind of the contents of that Section 203, the Army Corps sets out pretty strict requirements of what goes into these feasibility reports. So this is just a high-level table of contents. We're still developing the actual report itself, but just to share this at this point, basically what the report will do is it will introduce the study and background. It will describe existing and future conditions without project and with the project, just like a typical EIS would do. And then environmental effects and consequences will be evaluated for the no action alternative and the other alternatives that are identified through the Army Corps plan formulation process. The report will then describe the tentatively selected plan, which is Army Corps speak basically for a preferred alternative based on the evaluation. And then the report also documents environmental compliance, public involvement, and recommendations by the non-federal sponsor, in this case, New York City, and those who prepare the report. There then will be extensive appendices, which will contain more detailed information and backing up all the engineering and cost engineering of the alternatives. And then the NEPA analysis will be contained in the environmental, social, and cultural resources appendices. So the economics appendix will contain quantitative and qualitative benefit comparisons of the alternatives, and the real estate plan will outline property-related needs for that tentatively selected plan. And then the public involvement appendix will contain records of all of our interagency coordination, public comments, and meeting history. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Jennifer Hogan, to describe the NEPA process.
Great. Thank you so much. Next slide. Thank you. So, as Alexis said, the project is subject to review in accordance with NEPA, which is the federal law that requires federal agencies to consider the effects of their policies, approvals, funding, or permits on the built natural environment. NEPA establishes a process for agencies and sponsors to document those effects, and it's also an umbrella statute as it encourages agencies to incorporate other environmental historic preservation requirements into one streamlined evaluation. Therefore, our analysis will address the requirements of Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, and others as we've listed here. The public and agency engagement activities that we will conduct during the NEPA process will also fulfill those other public reviews required by these other laws. The environmental review will be conducted in accordance with the Department of War's 2026 National Environmental Policy Act implementing procedures, which the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers follows. And as the design progresses, multiple state and local permits will be pursued in the future, requiring state and local environmental review. Next slide. The EIS analysis will assess existing and future conditions with and without the project, as Alexis mentioned, in accordance with NEPA, and will be using a 50-year period of analysis following construction. This involves evaluating the no action alternative and the 3 alternatives in the final array. The resources will be evaluated and grouped into 4 overarching categories listed here. Natural environments will include water resources such as wetlands, floodplains, surface waters, as well as hydrology and hydraulics, sewer infrastructure, water quality, aquatic and terrestrial animals and plants, and endangered species. The physical environment includes air quality, geology, topography, soils, groundwater, noise and vibration, cultural resources, hazardous, toxic, radioactive waste, and recreation parklands and open space. The built environment includes transportation, navigation, and coastal zone management. And the human environment includes land use, zoning, public policy, socioeconomic conditions, including neighborhood character, as well as visual resources. Next slide. So we're currently in the scoping period, which began on May 28th and will close on July 14th. Looking ahead to the second half of 2026 and the first quarter of 2027, the project team will conduct and document the plan formulation process to evaluate the various alternatives. And this will include the EIS analysis required by NEPA, and then interagency coordination will occur throughout. We anticipate releasing the draft integrated interim feasibility report and environmental impact statement in the second quarter of 2027, with public review and comment extending into the third quarter of that year. Finally, the final report will be submitted in late 2027 or early 2028. If it meets all their requirements, the Army Corps will issue a record of decision, and the report will be submitted to the ASA office and ultimately to Congress for authorization. If authorized, the city would seek funding appropriations for 65% federal match of eligible project expenses and then move toward permitting and construction. Next slide. The planning process. Excuse me?
65. That's what she said. Go ahead.
The planning process for FIDI begins with identifying a study purpose and objectives. Next slide. So we have our purpose statement listed here, which is to manage the current and future flood risk to the FIDI Forge study area, creating a coastal storm risk management system with the goals to preserve and enhance critical maritime, roadway, and public transportation services, as well as emergency access and waterfront access for all users. Next slide. And the objectives that we've developed are based on the FIDI Seaport Climate Resilience Plan and all the engagement that we've done to date. And these objectives are listed here. They include providing coastal storm risk management system to reduce risk for the Friday and Seaport City area, to maintain the functionality and reliability of the transportation system, to maintain water transportation services along the East River, including the ferries, to maintain and increase vehicle and pedestrian access to and from waterfront destinations, as well as historic and tourist areas, reduce the risk of mobilization by prioritizing passive coastal storm risk management infrastructure, and balance initial investment with providing comprehensive flood protection. And now I'll pass it back to Alexis to wrap it up.
Thank you. Just confirming you all can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So you all can read the public notice for scoping, and additional information is now live on EDC's website. We do hope and encourage that you will attend either the in-person scoping meeting on June 23rd at 6 p.m. It will be at the National Museum of the American Indian, or we have a virtual meeting on June 25th at 6 p.m. And you can RSVP to either on our website. The public is welcome to submit comments on the scope of the study through July 14th. And this is the Army Corps of Engineers email address, which you should submit the comments to. Of course, you can always sign up to be on our email list, and you will also receive this information. And thank you for inviting us, and we will stop here.
Can I make just a quick ask on it? Alexis, unfortunately, the 2 dates that you have in June both conflict with community board required meetings. So, sorry, can you hear me? Alexis, so June 23rd, there's a mandatory training from in person from 6 to 7:30. And June 25th is our full board meeting. The 23rd was always going to be our full board meeting. So neither one of those June dates are fantastic for CB1.
What time is the meeting for them?
Their meeting for the in-person scoping is 6 to 8, and ours is 6 to 7:30.
Alexis, are these gonna be recorded? Are you there? Can you hear us? Oh, good. Oh, you can still speak?
No, she's muted.
Oh, she's muted.
Casey, do you mind just answering the question?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Go
Screaming
ahead.
child, yeah.
So I didn't know about that training, and I'm sorry that conflicts.
It would have already been our full board meeting anyway, so nobody from community board from wasn't able to go.
On both nights.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, you're obviously still welcome to submit comments, and if you're working on a resolution here, that resolution can be submitted as the community board's comments. I think for both meetings, the in-person meeting, we technically have the space till 9. So if there's a lot of commenters, we're prepared to go to that time. And I would say the same goes for virtual if you wanted to join late. But
we're going to be great.
Will they?
Would you like us to all march
Can we
in?
also,
Just for hand raised, okay.
Sorry.
Will they be recorded meetings? Is there an opportunity to hear?
the virtual one can be recorded. Certainly.
Okay, so that's good to know.
Well,
Yeah.
the in-person one cannot be.
We weren't planning to record the in-person one.
My question was, in terms of the content of those meetings, is it going to be any different than what we heard tonight, and maybe a summary of this or some of the, we've seen a lot of these presentations, we know a lot about these projects. Just wondering
Yeah,
what
it's basically these slides plus some more information that's in that document in front of you.
To Jeff's point, that was my question is, what exactly, is there anything else that you can give us tonight? I mean, basically, we spent a lot of time having to identify all the things in these documents. Are you going to be doing some of that work for us in the meeting? And is there anything you can give us for tonight, just to make sure all people better understand? You had a lot of, alternatives and things that you're looking at. Is this sort of just going to be reviewing those documents, kind of 1+1+1 is sort of like what we've done already.
Yeah, just kind of stepping through that additional information document in more detail. And then we want to keep the presentation relatively brief because the purpose of a scoping meeting is really to collect comments from the public. So most of the meeting will be collecting verbal and written comments.
So can you just tell us, maybe just give us a little sense, something that was really obvious to us and was missing, was just how it relates to what's already been put forth as the 5IC Port Master Plan. That relationship, you've already sort of selected an approach, I would argue an alternative. Are you then backtracking to say, oh, now we can look at it with a nature-based solution and, different kinds of approaches? How does it relate to the work that's already been done?
Yeah. Alexis, you want me to pick that one? I was just saying, can I actually ask a question to you, like,
Can
related
we
to
get
that?
that answer and then?
Yeah.
It's a great question. Obviously, a lot of work has been done to date. You've seen it all as part of the master plan. I think in order to secure a significant federal funding match, the city has made the decision to undergo this process. It's never been done in New York before. It's never even been done in the Northeast. So it's a relatively new undertaking in this part of the country. And it has a lot of rigorous requirements that we have to fulfill to meet Army Corps standards. So in some ways, we are kind of taking a step back in order to move forward. So we basically just need to make the case that we are designing the right alternative for this study area, that we're looking at all options, different storm events, and doing this rigorous analysis so that the Army Corps will ultimately sign off on the plan.
Is there room though for, changing things? In other words, I find that's what's so difficult. You're asking the public to comment on the scope and you're looking allegedly at alternatives, yet there doesn't seem to be room to really truly look backwards because you're wanting to move forward. So I found that very confusing. This actually better explains why, because it's the first time it's going on, but you can appreciate that question. Because it's a community that's been invested in these plans for many years, and all of a sudden we're being asked, let's rethink this. And these 5 alternatives you present are very enticing, like, all nature-based, or.
It doesn't work in Denver though.
Right, I mean,
I don't think
but
that
those
really has
things.
to be.
Well, that's exactly what's being reviewed here in the scope of that. I mean, that is partly what we're looking at, right? So
I wasn't clear how the alternatives proposed tie to the approach that has been very clearly outlined in the finance support.
Right. So the Army Corps actually requires that you consider a structural alternative, meaning, simply flood walls at its most basic form, a non-structural alternative, which can be a combination of everything from buyouts to zoning text amendments, programs and policies related to flood management. It also requires you look at nature-based or engineering nature solutions. So we are documenting that we are evaluating all of those options in this feasibility study. That's just a requirement.
Okay, when.
So, when Donald Trump got elected and Alexis was worried about the funding, keeping her alive for a couple months. Remember that? What month was that? We're happy you're still here, Alexis. I just want to say that because at one point we were talking about shutting the whole thing down. And because there wasn't enough money. And so this is really interesting to hear that you can get up to 65% from the federal government. But if you want the 65%, then you've got to go through the Army Corps' multiple steps, which are illogical given how much work the city's already done. But the Army Corps, being the federal government, never lets you skip a step, is my understanding. Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. So we have to go back to just build an ugly wall, just do all the things that would be unacceptable to the neighborhood so that we miss or we get the window spring 2027 to get the decision by spring 2028. But if you don't go through, build the ugly wall, do just nature-based, don't do anything, if you don't do all that, then you can't even be considered for the 2027. Is that correct?
We're hoping to submit WORDA 2028, which means, yes, the draft report would have to come out in 2027 to meet that timeline.
Right, so we're not really readdressing all the work that's been done. What you're doing is checking all the boxes so the federal government will read the document to then hopefully we qualify for the 65% match. And hopefully the election is different and we have a friendlier New York environment here. So we're not really reevaluating everything. What we're doing is checking boxes to get the 65% match. And it's actually lower than I thought it would be. I mean, and if you get 65 from the feds, what does that mean for the city and the state? I mean, that's a heavy lift. Because, you know, is it still $1 billion a mile? Basically, is the cost of this thing. So, I mean, it's not nothing. We're gonna have a lot of challenges. So, you know, one of the things is I'm really happy Alexis is still alive. I just want to say, it's like that. I remember those days. We were, well, right. We had meetings. We didn't know you'd still be alive or not. So I just wanted to say like the framework so that for folks that are kind of trying to say, why are we doing this way? I mean, if I'm wrong about what you're doing, please correct me.
You're correct.
But my sense is that we're not really reevaluating everything.
Right.
Yeah.
No, well, yes and no. But to your point,
Yeah.
it is.
We're
it is
looking
a
for
very
the
clever
65.
way to try to get congressional funding.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Nancy.
It's just documenting what's already been, right? So it's giving them information we already have.
Well, again, I would dive in a little bit when you have a chance to if you haven't already, to look through what is there, because there is an opportunity to consider, you know, different potential ways of looking at things, and I know, I'm sure Kat. Yeah, no, I don't mean to say to your homework, I think there are opportunities for those who are looking closely at some of these issues that come up, whether it's natural resources or quality of air, or how this fits into the historic district, and a lot of things that hopefully we might even be helpful to the EDC and powers that be going forward. This is an opportunity, is the way I looked at it, or the way we looked at it, I
Do
think
we
so.
not already have all that information?
No, I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to put all that to paper. In fact, we've done a fair amount of that. It's true in a recent resolution. We've only actually written one resolution on the FIDIC board plans to sign. So keeping that in mind. And that is very much trying to be integrated into this draft resolution. Yeah, Jeff.
Two questions. First one's a simple one. So if we meet this timeline, 2028, does that mean we're contemplating that we'll be in the 2028 authorization bill? And then, of course, it has to be appropriated as well. So I guess we're looking at 2040, 2041 as the completion date if all goes well. Is that roughly what you're up? Okay, so given that, in the course of the design, and I guess this is probably a Peter's question, the plans that we've seen all along for all the resiliency projects have referred to the New York City Panel on Climate Change, I think 2019 projections, but there's been subsequent New York City Panel on Climate Change projections that are different than the ones that were in 2019, and at least some of them are less sea level rise for different periods and different temperatures for other periods. Are you taking those into, given that this thing won't even be built until 2041, are you taking into account the newer climate change science so that we will be as up to date as practicable by the time the thing is built?
Yes, we have the latest MPCC data. I will say the Army Corps has their own sea level rise curves, which are a little different than the NPCC's curves. So we do have to do a comparative analysis to look at their high sea level rise curve as well. We also have to do additional analysis to look at different design different storm types, because the FIDI Seaport Master Plan was designed to the 100-year storm in the year 2100. The Army Corps wants us to look at everything from a 20-year storm to a 50 to 100, 200, I think even 500. We're still working on that. We're still working out the methodology right now in terms of what is required, but there's a rigorous amount of work going into this.
That's comforting.
Yeah.
I mean, it may seem trivial, but small differences in DFE can make a huge difference in its effect on the countryside. And so using the best possible modeling, it's, from either direction. If it's 7 inches shorter, people will have views they otherwise wouldn't have. But if it's gonna not withstand the storm in 2070, then you've wasted several $1 billion. So, it's good to have that debate. Okay.
My first question is, are we rooting for an odd or even year? It's 2-year cycles.
It's even years.
Even year. Do we have a plan B?
I'll leave that to the city, I think.
Alexis?
Alexis is an odd, the answer is Alexis, do we have a plan B for Army Corps?
Oh, a plan B to Army Corps? Yes. I mean, we always, we are always contingency planning. We are mitigating for risk. I think that Wendy described the, let's say forecast or current environment for federal funding is very limited. And our goal is to go for the maximum amount of federal funding with some understanding that there has to be an alternative. Yeah. I mean, if there's always a possibility that the Section 203 won't be approved, that it won't move forward. And then we're going to have to seriously explore those other options.
But if UNC.
But you're not exploring any other options, you're just depending upon this?
No, they are.
Alexa?
Alexis, I guess the question, I know you're two-timing, so.
Yeah, so, no. So it's just to say that a series of things need to go in the right direction in order for, Section 203 to be approved, in order for it to be authorized, in order for it to be appropriate, right? For there to be appropriation. So I don't want to say right now that this is like a done deal and it's the only course of action. What we're laying out now is a process that we have determined with City Hall is our best option for federal funding.
And what's your price tag? How much are you asking for?
So it would be 65% of essentially the coastal storm risk management features. And we have yet to determine with the Army Corps what are the kind of the eligible versus what are the features that they wouldn't consider part of the underlying coastal storm risk management. That's a future conversation.
So what is the range of money you might want to get?
The range, I mean, it'll be in the billions, but we don't have a specific number right now.
Go ahead, Richard.
You mentioned that this has never been done before. How is this different from the HATS study?
So what hasn't been done in New York is this Section 203 process where the non-federal sponsor, in this case, the city of New York, is leading the feasibility study with Army Corps oversight, technical assistance. This type of process has been done in Florida, Louisiana, Texas, a lot of southern states actually, and not just for coastal storm risk management, also for things like navigation and interior flooding. So that's the new part. What's different from HATS is HATS was entirely Army Corps led with input from the city and stakeholders, but It's, the difference is who's driving the ship, really.
Well, to your point on Army Corps, we put it in, you know, just one of our general concerns was, well, how does the HAT study inform this or impact this?
Yeah, so
wait
as you
one
know-
second, because we also have Catherine Prabilski on the line. Just because EDC isn't the lead agency in the city for the HATS study. FIDI Seaport as a segment was included in the HATS kind of the 2022 report. But I just want to give Catherine the opportunity to answer particularly about HATS.
Thanks.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay, good. And then I got my camera. Oh, and you can see my back.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so HATS, yeah, as Alexis and Casey have it right. There's real distinction on Section 203, the process that EDC on behalf of the city is leading is, that the city is the non-federal sponsor, however, is leading the study. And the Corps is really an advisor, and then in the end, as she mentioned too, as the ASA will approve the study, will approve the chief's report, will agree with it, and we'll have it included in Congress. What HATS was led by the Army Corps, where the state of New York Department of Environmental Conservation and the state of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection are the non-federal sponsors. They're the shared non-federal sponsors for HATS. The New York City is a non-federal partner for HATS, which is the same structure other than New Jersey for all of the other Army Corps projects in the city, including the South Shore of Staten Island, Rockaway Atlantic Shoreline, and Rockaway Jamaica Bay projects. So the typical is that the city is a partner, New York State is the non-federal sponsor, and the Army Corps leads the study and they lead the construction. And just to reiterate what Casey said, the difference here is that the city and our consultants and our technical desire and our public knowledge is really what's driving the study and driving the analysis. And it's really great to be more in the driver's seat. HATS is also a mega study, which similar to Section 203, there are not many mega studies in the country. And the mega study of HATS, as you have probably gathered, was really a bit unwieldy for the Army Corps, for the local district. HATS is not paused completely, but it is advancing with a project in New Jersey for WRDA 26. So again, the Water Resource Development Act, and they are looking for ways to continue to finalize the study, to finalize HATS overall, and find additional projects. I would ask Casey or Alexis, though, to answer how HATS informs the FIDI project, which my gut is that it is a component, but it's not really informing it directly. Like, as you guys know, there's been significant rigorous environmental engineering analysis done for the FIDI Seaport master plan and and for this additional kind of legwork that they're doing.
So essentially those like actionable elements that are advancing those kind of projects that are advancing in WRDA 26 as part of HATS, FIDI was not selected to be an actionable element. And therefore, as part of our contingency planning, which we're always doing, we made a decision that the city would support going the path of a Section 203 study, which again puts us in the driver's seat. We develop our own feasibility and submit it as an integrated report and with technical assistance from the Corps, but it's not considered the Army Corps' feasibility and integrated EIS. It really is that the city is putting forward this study with some kind of coaching and support and technical assistance from the Corps. So it's pretty fundamentally different in terms of the amount of autonomy that we have and the amount of control that we have over the direction.
But in a scoping exercise where you're looking at an EIS for this area and you've had the Army Corps looking at the whole of this, waterfront on both sides of the Hudson and into the East River, so you're saying it's simply not it just wasn't evaluated as part of this in any way. It's not, it's sort of a separate thing that is not informing this. Is that, I mean, I think that's what you're saying, if I'm hearing correct. Right, yeah, I guess. if
Yeah,
that
so
is-
we have an independent our environment review is separate from, you know, the Army Corps HATS 2022 study did they call it tier 1, very high level analysis. You can consider this, you know, our environmental review would be separate and independent of that, but informed by what would be kind of Army Corps standard procedures and policies.
Yeah, I guess if that's the case, I guess, you know, just make it clear somewhere along the line in your final BIS would be helpful. It's a little odd to me, but anyway, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know, I wanted to follow up with that, so appreciate. So a little separately and back to Wendy's question earlier, I mean, there was no funding for anything, not even design, not even the light switches, not too long ago. So what is the cost of all of this getting into Congress? How much is that? So how much is it funded?
Yeah.
How did it get funded?
So, just as a point of clarification, so the last time I appeared in front of you, we had put in a new need request. We did not have additional money for design. We still do not. That new need request was not published as part of the current city budget, so we still have not gotten money to beyond this study, right, to continue kind of design, except for as part of this study. We did get fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 funding in the last budget cycle during the last administration. And that has allowed us to pursue this path of the feasibility and integrated EIS. So just as Wendy said, we got just enough funding so that we don't need to stop, but we will need to, this is critical path in order for us to be eligible for federal funding that would allow us to move beyond this, you know, EIS and feasibility phase.
Well, okay, I'm gonna look more team.
This is just maybe jumping into some of the alternatives that have been identified to the study, these new approaches that I know you're saying are kind of like, there's one approach and it's the Bad Seaport Climate Master Plan, and we're open to carry that along, but there are these other approaches that will be studied, some of which seems a little bit concerning in that they often would close off public access to the waterfront. For example, the structural and land approach, or I think there was a version of one of the structural and water approaches. So say you reach the end of this process and suggest the one that aligns most closely with the finite climate resilience master plan, but that isn't approved by the US Army Corps of Engineers, where they come back and say, you know, actually one of these other approaches, one that completely shuts off the waterfront, is the one that makes the most sense based on all of this analysis. What happens then? Does all of that previous work go out the window and there's a huge wall built, or what does that mean? Because it seems possible.
Yeah.
So I can't, well, I was just going to say, we can't predetermine the outcome of like what the TSP would be without having gone through the Army Corps process, but I'll just reiterate what I have been for. It is not the city's policies to build walls at our waterfront. That is not something that has been approved to date by the city or advanced by the city. And there is always an option of a locally preferred plan. It comes with its own, and in cases there have been locally preferred plans that Catherine can speak to, but it's really too early on in the Army Corps process of this feasibility to kind of forecast what any difference would be between what the Army Corps might on their own, you know, if they were doing the study advance versus what a locally preferred plan would be. But there is always the option.
I would, if I could just chime in on that, because you probably are thinking, well, the HATS TSP was a series of walls around New York City Harbor, right? But that again was a very initial initial part of their analysis. And to Alexis's point, I will reiterate it also from the Bureau of Coastal Resilience standpoint, is that we are not in the business of walling off the city from its waterfront, right? Like we would look for a more integrated solution. Even if it was led by the Army Corps, the city would have, as the non-federal sponsor or as the non-federal partner, which is our relationship with the Corps on the other projects, is that if the non-federal sponsor or partner is significantly opposed to the thing that is proposed, it's not going to get built that way. So there is still an ability. We're not going to have walls on our waterfront.
Here, I'm just gonna, and people haven't spoken yet. Sarah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, so we're not gonna vote on this.
When are we gonna vote on it?
No, we're not going to.
Well, I don't know. Of course we are.
Why?
Sure.
This is what we do as an agency.
This is common.
Because everything they're doing it for us. They're doing it without us.
This is public comment. What we're voting on are comments that we are submitting that are part of what their presentation is about, the funding source that they're seeking. The opportunity for public comment is what we're doing. It's not we're preventing them from going, we're providing our comments to be on record. So when the federal government looks and says, hey, maybe this is a project, our comments are there. That's why it's a vote for comments.
Do we honestly think that they're going to listen to us?
If you say nothing, you get nothing.
Okay, I mean, on that note, okay, we'll hear from all three of you, so this will be the second.
No, I never asked a question.
Oh, I was pointing this way, sorry, I know your hand was up, okay,
Real dumb.
okay, sorry.
Jen, while we have you, the latest iteration of the Seaport plan, I mean concretely, what's built, what won't be built, what might be destroyed, that is available on the EDC website circa November 25?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, that's one thing. And will this planning be that specific, Seaport planning be part of this combined interim report, feasibility and EIS?
Will the master plan be part?
Will this, the part dealing with the seaport?
Yeah, the seaport's in the study area for this plan, yes.
So it will be.
It will be
part.
included, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
For the next 5 years, since we don't have a plan, has the impact of the BMCR being finished and battery being finished and those are walls and water finds its own way and those walls will channel all the water down to the seafloor? Is that what we are afraid of, and are we planning to do anything about that?
Can you repeat the question? I just couldn't hear the first part from the room.
The MCR and the battery are almost finished.
Yes,
And
correct, yes.
in the worst case, they employ their barriers. And in the worst case, those barriers send all the water to us. In the next 5 years or whatever, where we have no protection.
In most cases, we flood everybody else because we have no defenses.
So
Is that accurate?
I can't answer kind of the operation of the entire LMCR system, but I think it's very clear that this is a gap in the plan. So we are currently planning for and doing an EIS in order to advance that gap so that there are no gaps in LMCR, but I can't say how it would, it really depends on the storm of how it would flood, and
Is there
I
a
don't
need
know.
for additional interim protection?
Definitely, but they don't have the money.
Who's gonna pay for it?
I was gonna say they don't have the
Well,
money.
but there is interim protection. The real estate has done their interim protections. There are buildings with type.
Okay, Tammy, go ahead and ask a
Okay,
question.
so I have a couple questions for you. One of the last conversations that we had and we spoke about and was there was a lot of output by the maritime community. They didn't want to lose 15 and weren't thrilled about 19 in terms of removing Pier 15, adding a 19. And the question was about the line in the sand, literally in the water that you're going for, and whether or not that would be able to change. And the answer at that time was, we can't change anything because we don't have any funding. Now, if we go through this process and the community input is still the same from the maritime community and the general community about modifying the line as you had it in the Five Eyes Seaport Master Plan that was in existence in November. There were questions from the Battery who were unhappy with this plan and the disconnection from the Battery and the building of giant walls. The community board and the community came back and said they weren't happy with the plan that Five Eyes Seaport had for the Battery and how that was working. So my question is, how does any of that feedback get put into this conversation? And is this conversation about the exact same thing as it was before with no changes?
So, as I've answered, previously, we consider all of your feedback and have appreciate your resolutions. Obviously, we've read them. They are part of the documentation at the city level for this project. We intend to address those future design changes when we get to a point of design past this particular immediate need to get through feasibility and the EIS. So I think you've asked before, Tammy, can the design change after 30%, 35%? The answer is yes. In particular, there are fixed elements and there are flexible elements. The piers, just like we presented last time, have greater flexibility than, let's say, the underlying coastal flood defense, which is really what we're evaluating as part of the Army Corps process. They're really looking at just that particular kind of like alignment and footprint that makes it a coastal storm risk management project. Other parts, topside elements, any of the particular, like 2-story buildings, amenities, anything can all be advanced in future design after we get through feasibility and the EIS phases. We don't have money beyond feasibility in the EIS phase, and so we would need that additional design money in order to address those. But none of those comments have been lost. Our intention is absolutely to incorporate what we can in that next phase. The Army Corps refers to it as the planning, engineering, and design phase. It's what we refer to in our projects as the, once you get past schematic and are going from that, 30 or 30% design all the way to 100% design construction, is where we can address outstanding issues from the community.
So, but I have 3 questions. That was the first. And the point was really the line in the sand is, while the piers have flexibility, the other parts of where your walls and alignments are and the shape of what you have between, for example, Battery Maritime Building and 15, essentially would remain as you have it, which I'm asking specifically because in the study that you shared, the 33 pages and the ranges of approaches and the in-water approach, the only 2 that I saw were narrow and medium, right? And whether or not those are the only 2 approaches that you're looking for in water with it.
Yes. Narrow and medium are the kind of shorthand we're using for the 2 in-water structural alternatives.
And which one of those is closest to the
The
west?
medium is basically what is the climate master.
And would there be, if it was a comment, it says it has to be studied and there's a lot of environmental issues and cost, and I see that in here as noted on page 19 maybe it was. But what I wondered was, when you're looking at the methodologies and you're going down, everything was based on buildings and transit, right? Those are the two primary things, if you look and read through, everything was about protecting the real estate and the transit. And it barely mentions public waterfront use and other uses. Like, it's very much designed when it looks at the goals and how it was, there's very little.
We bring all this up in the resolution, I've had a chance to,
Right,
yes,
yeah.
this is all,
But,
I hopefully
I
will
mean, I
cover,
guess
so.
my question is, if the Army Corps of Engineers came back and said, we think that we want to do something in the harbor instead, that's gonna lower the risk over here, and you're gonna have to change that, is that an option that could come from this? Or is it only what you're showing from 5C4?
We, it's not looking at a harbor gate. So we can only evaluate what we are proposing.
Right. And I think my question goes back to, in this, the 6 things that you talked about, which are the goals and objectives for 5A Forge, it is all about protecting the buildings and the transit systems. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything being green infrastructure based here. It's passive, I understand passive, but over deployable, but there's no, like, kind of eliminates anything related to nature base, and it doesn't seem like we'll take a little bit from option A, a little bit from B, and a little bit of C. It really just seems to be flat. Is that true?
So the nature-based measures, the engineering with nature measures, there are some that could augment a structural measure. So, an example is when you have a textured flood wall that.
Or the battery who says that they would like to be able to flood and reseed. Specifically, the Battery Conservancy has said that.
Buyouts and managed retreat, that would be a non-structural measure. But in
Yeah, you have
terms
to
of.
buy out here. You can't just flood Eye. It's
No.
not like flooding a park.
No,
Where are we going with it? It's 9:30.
I'm just.
And we have a resolution to.
I was gonna say the resolution is a really good start and
Thank you.
addresses a lot of Tammy's points here. Yeah,
Yes, so I'd love it if people read it, so we can move it along.
I was looking at what Alexis and the team said as a response to it. I mean,
I think, put another way, did you eliminate the things that Tammy is referring to because the Army Corps doesn't care about that stuff?
That's what I was going to, that's the point, is that I
That's
think
key.
you're leading the witness so that you'll get the 65%, and then hopefully we'll put all the goodies back in when we get the 65%. And that is,
There are reasons like expanding public open space or like.
but that's what the
So
Army Corps doesn't want.
The fourth objective.
Do not want it.
but then, like, isn't maritime use, additional maritime use, public waterfront maritime use, aren't those things that are considered, they're not in here. And they're not study objectives either. You've got waterborne transportation. It's all about the ferries and the tour boats. It's not about public use.
I think I think it's clear it's not here. It's clear that it is in the 5IC board master plan. No, yes, it is. It is. And it's noted in our resolution that it had 3 goals that are stated. And one of them is to enhance the public waterfront experience by creating new public open spaces and community serving uses. This doesn't appear in the study objectives, which we need to add to this resolution because that seems to be a critical component that absolutely is part of the original, not just, we just quoted from the Seaport plan. So those objectives are not matched with the plans that, how do you deal with,
What do you
that's
call
the
it,
question.
you have it in van and you get rated?
I just want to hear her.
So the fourth objective is largely intended to get at this public access to the waterfront that you're describing. And this, on the slide, this is paraphrased from what's in the actual document. It's a bit longer in the document.
Yeah. I looked at the study objectives as well, and it seemed to be missing that kind of
Were you leading the witness for the Army Corps is what we're asking?
So I'm not gonna say we're leaving.
You're talking,
No, but I think these are all comments that can be
Yeah, I
submitted.
think this is
Yes.
exactly where we're at, perfect segue into diving into this document, where, and certainly we have until the full board meeting to, amend this, but now's a good time to review it, because we are gonna vote on it. We are gonna add this point, which is, listen. Okay, so page 7 of 10 of this, a number, go ahead. Goals and
Under
objectives.
goals and objectives, it currently reads tie the EIS goals and objectives to goals outlined in the FIDI resilience plan and priorities raised repeatedly by MCD1 and concerned members of the public, including creation of new high-quality public open space and increased public access to the waterfront, include the integration of this new development into surrounding neighborhoods and existing plans, and include expanded biodiversity and ecological resilience.
What we did, just so you understand, as a way to go about this, was to take the incredible amount of work that this committee and the board did on the finite seaboard resilience plan, and then try to apply it as best we could into the scoping document, which we thought would be helpful. Yeah, so you were sort of doing this to help move things along here, right?
Yeah, I think that was.
can we define,
Tie those together.
can we add more than access to the waterfront? Because the way access.
Well, whatever you want to add, just we'll, as a committee, let's just dive in,
Public maritime uses.
Okay, well,
Access to the waterfront from both sides.
Yeah.
And
And
access
recreation.
to the waterfront means from the land and from the water.
okay, so accepted, it's it, what else
And
you got?
the word recreational.
Okay, remember this is a scoping document, not a design document.
Right,
Try to
right.
focus on scoping, this is an environmental impact statement, this is about all those different documents, not the sexy stuff and making a beautiful park, the building here,
Resilience.
As part of the
Yeah,
scoping,
so-
you talked about the soft, like some kind of soft walls underneath that we keep hearing about that, are places. The infrastructure that we've seen for the scoping is all hard stuff. So the kinds of walls that you see now in Miami and other places that are incubators for wildlife. Is that something that we put in here for materiality?
It's not really part of this, it isn't like looking to, it's sort of, the scoping is what do we want them to review, if you're looking at more. I mean, I'm not sure what that would fall, but I guess,
Well, the natural resources.
Under natural resources.
well, that's actually not a natural resource, it's the way something, a wall is built. Maybe it's on this.
Could you add the words,
But
increase?
why don't you look at let's do this together. Looking at the be it further resolved, it's in the category of
I'm
wording.
on to page 7, and I'm looking at both the objectives, and
Good,
I'm looking at a sentence, and I'm suggesting language change.
good.
Thank you.
Where?
So under increased creation of new high-quality public open space and increased public uses and public access to both sides of the waterfront. Very simple.
Great, yeah, thank
Thank
you, Michael. All right,
Where does the EDC team think that we can put in? You understand what my concern is that when you're doing construction impacts, it is part of it. But that we should be building and using some of those types of things that
Like living seawalls.
yeah,
Yeah.
where does that fit in here?
So in the screening of measures that goes into formulating the array of alternatives, we have to screen engineering with nature measures. And we have screened in measures that augment structural measures. So that would be the appropriate place to comment on that.
why don't we say, Tammy, write something that you want to say, and we will find this phone here, you're saying that you want to
Well,
have.
she said it goes into the engineering with nature, right? Which would be,
Well, I think it's here, page,
screening
of approaches.
I was thinking,
So it's, yeah, screening of approaches, which,
The way that they get screened out is the next section, the final array of alternatives to be considered
Right.
further evaluated in the EIS. I think there was a mention that engineering with nature will be in some situations incorporated back in directly in the report too, so maybe there's something we can add in that section about that. But
Yeah,
then
and it's also our responsibility to take the comments and find the right place. So it's great that you're doing all this work, but like, if you don't refer to the correct section, it's okay, like, we will do the job matching.
We want to add it before we
It could go into ecological impacts as well.
Well, what is it that you're saying? Could you just say it again, what you want to say?
We should be using engineering with nature in water.
Maybe,
Let her tell me what the words are. She had the perfect word.
Right. Augmenting structural alternatives with engineering with nature measures. So there's a lot of jargon involved in this. World.
you know different jargon.
Yeah.
Specifically for the in-water stuff, because we're not doing anything there's been nothing in here that's green. There's no
Yeah.
electrification, everything is still diesel based.
Okay, so
I have a proposal from our committee lit for us, at least on the final page under
Yep.
ecological impacts.
Yep, that's what I was looking.
It says, the last bullet point right now talks about identifying and proposing opportunities for habitat restoration and ecological enhancement through each approach. We could add something there that says augment structural approaches in water with nature-based solutions.
sounds
exactly
good.
it.
Terrific.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Anybody else have additions, amendments to the resolution? Go ahead, David.
And this is sort of in the Army Corps' backyard. If there is to be construction into the river itself, in other words, if the East River is to be further constrained, I think the study will have to be done on the influence of the currents, because they will increase. But it's not just how those currents will affect navigation, it's how those currents will impact on the shore. Because the shore is mostly landfall. And it's not just Manhattan, it's Brooklyn. If those currents increase, as we should expect with sea level rise, but also with further constrained river, that should be studied, because that could have a major impact.
Both governors and
Yes, thank you.
I think currents and tides, well, I'm not an expert on the plan, but I
Go
just
for it.
noticed there, I think under like water resources and maybe navigation, it is called out.
Mentioned there, but not specifically with current data.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's something the Army Corps would be familiar with, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question of people who know about how this is gonna fit in. And that is, given the shortness of time, it's likely that some things we'll put in here won't make any sense at all to you. And my question is, if we accidentally put garbage in here, you will still read the good stuff, right?
Of course. We're legally obligated to.
No, not, okay, so my follow-up to that.
would too.
The follow-up to that, and it's really, I think, for Martine mainly, is after hearing the presentation tonight, is there anything that you would change in the whereases in particular? Because some of the comments in the whereases have kind of been answered on why certain things weren't in there. I don't think changes to be it resolves pretty much at all. And I don't mean to imply that any of the whereases are garbage, but.
They can be, they can always
Talked about it, but in the interest of time today, we spoke about this, that we just don't leave the warehouse clauses
That's
as
fine.
is for now, because it gets a lot of time for her to
I mean,
read.
there's a lot of work in here.
As of this
Yeah.
presentation, is there anything that I would change?
Yeah.
Right, after hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was helpful to understand a little bit more of like, you have to meet all these criteria for a really particular funding process. So some of the concerns I was having with reading through it were really about the gap between all the work that's been done for the master plan and how this might undermine some of that. So I feel personally less concerned about that, but that said, I think it's okay to keep it in the resolution of like, yeah, we want to make sure that those plans do work together and community concerns are incorporated on top of the work that's already been done. So I feel comfortable leaving them largely as they are.
Okay.
But I really just having to instruct them all too.
Thank you so much for doing it, by the way.
It's great.
Massive effort.
Yeah, it was
Hi,
great.
Alice. Can I ask a question when there's a moment?
Sorry, Eric, we didn't see your hand.
That's okay.
Danger of not being in the room. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, yeah. It mentioned, it mentioned in the EIS scoping that on page 13, that the principle and guidelines, one of them is efficiency, and it says cost effective. But I want it to be cost effective in terms of in a long life cycle, as well as reduced capital replacement and maintenance costs. I don't want it to just look at, oh, the contract to build this, you know, it'll be lower. However, the cost to maintain it, the operating costs or the complexity to maintain it will be borne over years after the contractor, the GC, you know, is done with the job. I want to make sure that it's cost effective in the long term, because in the principle and guidelines, it was rather vague. So I wanted to make sure that it's cost effective in the long term after the contractor completes the job.
We've added it to under, it's added. Yeah.
Before us.
Okay, and we almost jumped into close here. We're getting close, let's go. Okay, so go ahead, Michael, and then, this is just to the resolution, go ahead, sorry.
I'm trying to see how we can address this. If we choose to fortify one small project on the waterfront, like putting in a new platform for the new market site, as an example, how do we put that into the resolution?
I don't.
In other words, it's more than just, you know, looking at it as a holistic whole. If there's a simple project that can be funded outside of this system, how can we put this in the resolution?
Relevant to different solutions.
Or is there a particular, because you've got it chunked up into subzones, that one section would be funded from this project, but not all?
We're looking at the study area comprehensively. I don't what you're suggesting, but you're welcome to submit that as
I mean, the new market site has been suggested as a recreation center.
I see, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and if it got funded outside of 203, does this just freeze the whole process till 2041, or can we do something before that?
If somebody walked forward and said, here's $100 million, I'm gonna work with the community and I'm gonna rebuild this site. I'd like it to be a slight bit different than yours because we want to do the full. The plan is a little different. And it still works.
Okay.
Okay.
We're getting some
Mark,
noise.
So that's really the question. You know, when you get a private-public partnership, they come forward.
What are you watching right now? Emergency?
I don't think this has to do with the public.
But
scoping documents.
the question is,
Let
can
it-
you, in the question for the public scoping document, is it all or nothing? Or how do you reflect that question?
I'm not sure we want to suggest to the Army Corps.
No, we don't want to suggest nothing, but I
Okay, this
mean,
is a question to you and or Alexis, can you answer that? Is if you get $100 million to build a recreation center at the new market here, can that be done without the
ruining or compromising?
I think it's really dangerous.
You have that money.
Was this process
Can we get an answer on that?
trying to get an answer.
Yeah, we're going there.
You got it.
We can't freeze the waterfront from like other plans that are moving forward.
No,
I think
the
like
question
anything else
is-
that has to do with, no, I mean, if another project were funded and it had all of its, you know, permitting and site control and everything else, like the idea of this is not that we could stop other things from moving forward at the waterfront.
So it would just alter the plans that you currently have by whatever moves forward at the current time.
So give it the $100 billion.
I'm working on this. Don't like it.
That's
okay.
I do have other things to do with my time.
All right.
Running.
Yeah, that's
Thank
great. Terrific. All right, so you've got your question answered.
Was that it? I think so.
Okay. All right, well, why don't you, if you can, take it off the line, because it seems like it's absolutely. Now, question. So,
About to get into fundraising.
Sounds like we're in consensus on this, aren't we?
I know, I gotta get up to 5 a.m.
I know. Okay, forget it.
Alice, one last question.
Please, if you have any ideas, send them my way.
Can I call the question?
Wait, one last question.
Yes,
Eric had
Yes.
But it was already called to question.
No,
That's all he had his hand up, so let Eric go and then.
Yeah,
The last minute for question.
Okay, on page 9 of the resolution, where it mentions, all modes of transportation, instead of just listing a few, would you change that to an EG so that we can list all types, including private vehicles, for-hire vehicles, and trucks?
how about included, not limited to? That way we don't have to add everything.
Because look,
Okay,
I'm
yes,
trying to be balanced here.
yes.
I think of all things, but I just want to make sure they don't forget about private vehicles as well as for hire and trucks, so that we don't lose the other modes.
Okay, we will identify.
Thank you.
What's your language?
Okay.
Including, not, but not limited.
Including, but not
Okay,
limited.
so,
Yeah,
It's
got
gotta
it.
be G.
So,
Call the question.
Call it second.
okay, so, by affirmation, I guess.
Aye.
Any recusals, anybody abstaining? Anybody in opposition?
No.
Okay. Check online, point, please have your camera
Thank you
on
so
if you're
much.
voting.
Yeah.
I have to thank you very much to everybody, like all you late, late through. So it's very kind. Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Exactly. Well, that was the thing, because I was using, but he was like, from here.
Yeah.
It was scary. It really looks like the money was running. Yeah. A month left.
How are you doing?
A month or two left.
Somewhere.
I know.